Chapter 3062. Making an exception underscore the three-eyed man, the green-haired woman, and Mo Shan all felt incredulous. Although it's a little unbelievable, it's the truth. The silver-haired old woman said seriously, the Mountain King personally sent a message. According to the Mountain King, the Heavenly Sword Marquis didn't defeat the three of them after a tough battle. Instead, he crushed the three of them easily. The three of them even felt that the Heavenly Sword Marquis didn't use his full strength. You can easily crush Mountain King and the other two, but you haven't even used your full strength yet? The three-eyed man was shocked. Hag, is that why you came to find me? Mo Shan looked at the silver-haired old woman. Yes. The silver-haired old woman nodded slightly. If what Mountain King and the other two said is true, then this kid called Heavenly Sword Marquis is a little too terrifying. Such a genius is worthy of the attention of our heaven-cleaving alliance. Now, the three palace masters already know about this matter. And Mo Shan, you've dealt with that kid before. If nothing unexpected happens, the three palace masters should be looking for you. Three palace masters. Mo Shan was stunned. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was publicly acknowledged as the #1 freedom alliance in the Divine Beginning realm. It had countless experts. For example, the Principal's masters, who were usually high and mighty, could be considered the strongest experts in any place in the Divine Beginning realm, even in the vast Third Firmament. However, there were quite a number of Principal's masters in the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. These Principal's masters also had differences in strength and status. And the three palace masters mentioned by the silver-haired old woman were the three palace masters of the Heaven-Cleaving Three Palaces, the Heaven and Earth Palace, the Primitive Palace, and the Primal Chaos Palace. They controlled the three palaces and had most of the resources of the Heaven-Cleaving Three Palaces. They were high and powerful, and their strength was also incomparably powerful. Mo Shan and the others were also in awe of these three palace masters. Oh, Mo Shan's expression suddenly changed. As expected, the three palace masters summoned me. After saying that, Mo Shan ignored the reactions of the people around him and directly closed his eyes at the table. The silver-haired old woman, the three-eyed man, and the jade-haired woman did not dare to disturb him. This was an incomparably grand palace. There were incomparably tall steps on the palace. At the top of the steps, 3 thrones stood side by side. On the thrones, there was a hazy figure. These 3 hazy figures belonged to the 3 palace masters. And below the great hall, Mo Shan stood there respectfully. Of course, regardless of whether it was the 3 palace masters or Mo Shan, they were merely consciousness incarnations. Their true bodies were all in different places. Mo Shan, about that genius called Heavenly Sword Marquis, say it. Among the 3 palace masters, the palace master sitting in the middle spoke. Mo Shan took a deep breath, and then respectfully explained everything he knew in detail, including the scene where he personally invited Jian Wushuang to join the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, and even some speculations about Jian Wushuang's refusal. In the chaotic void, beside the stone table, Mo Shan opened his eyes again. Mo Shan, how is it? The silver-haired old woman, the 3-eyed man, and the green-haired woman immediately looked over. The 3 palace masters summoned me and asked me in detail about Heavenly Sword Marquis. After that, the 3 palace masters discussed for a bit and came to a decision. Mo Shan said, "What decision? Should we send another invitation to Heavenly Sword Marquis?" The silver-haired old woman asked. No. Mo Shan shook his head. According to the rules of the 3 heaven-cleaving palaces, no matter how outstanding a genius is, he will only be invited twice. This is the pride of the 3 heaven-cleaving palaces. Although Heavenly Sword Marquis is extremely talented, It is not to the extent that the 3 heaven-cleaving palaces would break the rules. However what? The silver-haired old woman immediately asked, although the 3 palace masters did not ask me to invite Heavenly Sword Marquis again. They made an exception for him. Mo Shan said, "Make an exception?" The 3 silver-haired old women were very puzzled. Heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Mo Shan's voice sank. The 3 palace masters have instructed that Heavenly Sword Marquis has unparalleled potential and limitless achievements in the future. Even if he doesn't want to join the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces, he can only be a friend of the heaven-cleaving alliance, and not an enemy. What should be roped in must be roped in. Therefore, they agreed to make an exception for him to go to the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. What? The 3 silver-haired old women were shocked. The heaven-cleaving mystic realm, if it was an ordinary expert, hearing these words would not cause any waves. However, the few people present were all high-level officials of the 3 palaces. They knew a lot of secrets about the many resources in the heaven-cleaving alliance. For example, they knew very deeply about the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. It was said that the heaven-cleaving mystic realm was a mystic realm opened by the mysterious leader of the heaven-cleaving alliance. Moreover, this mystic realm was not the heaven and earth mystic realm, but the universe mystic realm. It was one of the biggest opportunities in the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces, and even the entire heaven-cleaving alliance. It contained endless opportunities. No matter who it was, anyone who entered the heaven-cleaving mystic realm could gain a lot. They could even obtain great fortune. Many people's strength improved greatly because they entered the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. There were also some people who were stuck at a bottleneck for many years and were unable to make a breakthrough, but once they entered the heaven-cleaving mystic realm, they immediately made a breakthrough. There were also some people who did not improve much when they entered the heaven-cleaving mystic realm, but after they came out of the heaven-cleaving mystic realm, their strength increased by leaps and bounds. In short, the heaven-cleaving mystic realm was definitely a land of fortune. There were many geniuses in the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces, and everyone was filled with desire for the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. However, even among the geniuses in the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces, 99% of them were not qualified to enter the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Instead, they needed certain conditions. This specific condition was the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces genius competition every 10,000 years. This competition would give birth to 3 people who could enter the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Among them, there were 2 from the primal chaos palace, a total from the primitive palace, and none from the heaven and earth palace. One had to know that this was a chance that only came once every 10,000 years, and there were only 3 people who could enter. One could imagine how harsh the conditions for entering the heaven-cleaving mystic realm were. But now, this Heavenly Sword Marquis was not a member of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces, but the 3 palace masters actually made an exception for him to go to the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Was this a very big exception? Impossible. This is impossible. No matter what, that Heavenly Sword Marquis is not a member of the 3 palaces. How could the 3 palace masters make an exception for him to go to the heaven-cleaving mystic realm? Because of his high talent. The 3-eyed man growled. I also think it is impossible, but it is the truth. This was personally ordered by the 3 palace masters, and they all came to a unanimous decision. Mo Shan said. This, the 3-eyed man could not help but be stunned. Could there be other reasons besides the talent of the Heavenly Sword Marquis? The silver-haired old woman suddenly asked. Maybe. Mo Shan shrugged. But no matter what, the 3 palace masters have already given the order, and this matter is left to me. It seems that I have to go meet the Heavenly Sword Marquis again. Chapter 3063. First Heaven _Jian Wu Shuang. Zhu Luo, and the others continued to move forward in the Whitebone region. But even now, the false saints in the team could not calm down for a long time. Even Zhu Luo looked at Jian Wushuang with great enthusiasm. Brother Heavenly Marquis, the three people just now came from the heaven-cleaving three palaces. The legendary heaven-cleaving three palaces are full of geniuses, and they are the genius disciples of the primitive palace. However, they were defeated by you when they joined hands. Brother Heavenly Marquis, aren't you too powerful? Zhu Luo was extremely excited. He was a genius too, but he was far inferior to the genius disciples of the heaven-cleaving three palaces. However, judging from the battle results just now, the geniuses of the three palaces were obviously inferior to Jian Wushuang. It's true that those three are geniuses of the three palaces. However, just because they are from the three palaces, it doesn't mean that they can look down on everything. The world is very big. There is a sky beyond the sky, and a mountain is as tall as a mountain. This time, they were just unlucky and happened to meet me, Jian Wushuang said calmly. He was not proud of defeating the three of them. Jian Wushuang had always believed that there was a sky beyond the sky. Although he was already incredibly powerful among the rank 1 true saints in terms of strength, he did not dare to say that his battle strength was superior to all the rank 1 true saints in the divine beginning world. It was difficult to guarantee that there would not be some rank 1 true saints in the divine beginning world who were even more powerful than him. Jian Wushuang would always be in awe of the world. Only by being in awe of the world from time to time, not being complacent, and not being arrogant could they live long. The team continued to move forward. They were lucky. In the following time, their team did not encounter too much trouble. Instead, they passed through the Whitebone field relatively smoothly. After passing through the Whitebone field, they had already arrived at the edge of the third heaven. Buzz, buzz. An ancient and incomparably yearning aura spread out from a vast and boundless land in front of them. Looking at the vast and boundless land in front of them, the false saints in the team all revealed ecstatic expressions. Third heaven. Is that the third heaven? The gathering place of the legendary experts. I've finally reached the third heaven. Exclamations sounded in the crowd. Jian Wushuang was also shining with a strange light. He looked at the huge continent in front of him and felt everything around him at the same time. The heaven and earth spiritual chi and the power of rules are obviously much denser here than in the endless territory. No wonder everyone yearns for this place. It's much easier to cultivate and comprehend the rules here than in the endless territory, Jian Wushuang thought. Besides the heaven and earth spiritual chi and the rule power, Jian Wushuang also knew the difference between the third heaven and the endless territory. The third heaven was the core of the divine, beginning world. The power of the will of heaven was the strongest here, much stronger than in the endless territory. When I used the life level pressure to perform the heaven-cleaving skill in the endless territories, I alarmed the will of heaven and caused the power of the will of heaven to descend directly. At that time, the power of the will of heaven that descended was terrifying and far beyond my ability to resist. But now, in the third heaven, the power of the will of heaven is the strongest. If I use the life level pressure or the heaven-cleaving skill and summon the will of heaven, I'm afraid no one can save me. Jian Wushuang was very vigilant. He would never reveal his life-level pressure and heaven-cleaving skill when he reached the third heaven. According to the information I got from the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, the third heaven does not refer to one continent, but 3. Jian Wushuang suddenly raised his head and looked at the top of the void, his eyes slightly focused. Although he could not see anything with his naked eyes, he was very clear that the so-called third heaven was actually a pyramid composed of 3 continents, like what Jian Wushuang and the others were seeing now, the giant continent in front of them was only the first heaven, and above the first heaven, hundreds of millions of miles in the sky, there was a giant continent floating there. It was the second heaven. Above the second heaven, at the top of the heaven and earth, was the real third heaven. It was said that the three masters of the saint realm who stood at the top of the third heaven had created a great saint realm in the third heaven, which was why they were called masters of the saint realm. The third heaven and the three continents are like a mountain. The first heaven is just the foot of the mountain, the second heaven is the mountainside, and the third heaven is the real mountaintop, which is the real peak. For me now, the first heaven alone is enough for me to travel for a long time, Jian Wushuang thought. One had to take one step at a time, and one had to eat one mouthful at a time. He was only a first-level true saint. Although his combat power was not bad, there were many people in the first heaven who were stronger than him, not to mention the third heaven. Everyone, this is the edge of the first heaven. Let's separate here. A false saint in the team suddenly said. Everyone nodded. They had formed a team to pass through the bone domain together. Now that they had passed the bone domain, there was no need to form a team anymore. Thank you, Lord Heavenly Marquis. And Zhu Luo. Yes, if it weren't for you, it would be difficult for us to pass through the bone domain. Thank you, my lords. The false saints thanked Jian Wushuang and Zhu Luo one by one. Jian Wushuang and Zhu Luo only smiled, faintly. Soon, the false saints left one after another. Zhu Luo did not leave directly. Instead, he looked at Jian Wushuang and asked, Brother Heavenly Marquis, you just arrived at the first heaven. Do you have any plans? Not yet, Jian Wushuang said. If you don't have any plans and don't know where to go, why don't you come with me? Zhu Luo said expectantly. Come with you? Where do you plan to go? Jian Wushuang asked. Well, Zhu Luo pondered for a moment. Then he smiled and said, Brother Heavenly Marquis, to tell you the truth, many years ago, when I was just a divine master, I met a mysterious expert when I was adventuring in the 9 Star country. That mysterious expert also saw that his talent was good and gave me an opportunity. He also said that if one day I could break through to the immortal saint realm, I could come to the first heaven and look for him in the juvenile god sect and take him as my master. Therefore, I rushed to the first heaven to find him in the juvenile god sect. Juvenile god sect. Jian Wushuang's expression changed. Chapter 3064. The junior divine sect. When he was in the endless territories, Jian Wushuang had carefully read all kinds of information about the third heaven, including the various sects and powers in the third heaven. For example, the most famous sects in the first heaven were the 3 pavilions, the 9 courtyards, and the 12 divine sects. They were the top sects in the first heaven. Of course, the sects and powers in the first heaven were far more than these. There were even some powerful sects that were comparable to the 12 divine sects and the 9 courtyards. However, they were not that famous. Jian Wushuang knew about the young divine sect because it was one of the 12 divine sects. The young divine sect was able to become one of the 12 divine sects because it had once given birth to a principal's master. I've just arrived at the first heaven. Although I've read some information here, I've never experienced the real environment. The young divine sect is one of the 12 divine sects. It's a good place for me to stay and familiarize myself with the environment, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. He had already made up his mind. Okay, I'll go with you to the young divine sect, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Haha, that's great. Let's go now. Zhu Luo seemed very excited. Jian Wushuang and Zhu Luo immediately set off together. The first heaven was very big and boundless. There were many countries in the first heaven. Each country had its own emperor. However, These countries all submitted to the sects, such as the 3 pavilions, the 9 courtyards, and the 12 divine sects. They all occupied many countries. Among them, the young divine sect had 81 countries, which were extremely powerful. Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo had already obtained the star map of the first heaven. They also knew about the existence of some spatial passageways. It only took them a short time to pass through the spatial passageways. They had already arrived in front of the young divine sect. That's the young divine sect. Jiu Luo stood high in the void and looked at the ancient sect that occupied a huge territory in front of them. The sect was completely covered in a layer of faint purple fog. The entire sect seemed to be faintly discernible and extremely strange. If one closed their eyes, no one would even think that there was a sect there. Instead, it seemed to be an empty void. The time and space where the sect is located is very special. Jian Wushuang stared at the ancient sect in front of him. He had a feeling that the ancient sect seemed to be out of place with the surrounding time and space, as if the two were in different time and space. Jian Wushuang had felt this strange feeling from Mo Shan, the senior of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces. If I'm not wrong, the reason why I have this special feeling is because of the secret realm of heaven and earth. Jian Wushuang's expression darkened. It's not surprising that the young divine sect doesn't exist in this space-time, but in the heaven and earth secret realm created by an expert. The heaven and earth secret realm was created by a principal's master. The heaven and earth secret realm was extremely strong and could store many things. It was normal for a rule master to put his sect in his own heaven and earth secret realm. If the secret realm of heaven and earth was complemented by a powerful formation, even some powerful principal's masters would not be able to shake the sect. After all, it was very difficult to destroy a secret realm of heaven and earth with the support of a formation. "Brother Heavenly Marquis, let's go down," Jiu Luo said. "Okay." Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. The two turned into 2 long arcs and rushed toward the gate of the young divine sect. There were more than 10 people guarding the huge gate, including some true saint experts. Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo were immediately stopped when they landed in front of the gate. "Who are you? What are you doing in the young divine sect?" A true saint stared at Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo coldly. Jian Wushuang looked indifferent. Jiu Luo said, "My name is Jiu Luo. I just came from the endless territories. As for my purpose, I met a senior named Su Qianxiu from the Young Divine sect a long time ago. He gave me an opportunity and said that I would come to the Young Divine sect to take him as my master after I reached the immortal saint realm. This is the token he gave me when he left." Jiu Luo took out a token. It was just an ordinary token, but it contained a special aura. The true saint took the token and looked at Jiu Luo in surprise. "You're Elder Su's disciple?" Elder Su has a strange temper and is always in closed-door cultivation. I've never heard of him having any disciples. I'm not sure either, but it's been 3,000 years since Elder Su gave me the opportunity, said Jiu Luo. "All right, wait here for a while. I need to confirm it first," said the true saint. "No problem." Jiu Luo smiled and waited in front of the mountain gate. Not long after, a middle-aged man in a loose robe walked out. "Deacon Wan." Upon seeing this middle-aged man, the people guarding the mountain gate all bowed respectfully. In the Young Divine sect, Deacon was second only to elders, and their status was extremely high. "Who is Jiu Luo?" The middle-aged man in the loose robe, Deacon Wan, asked. "I am," Jiu Luo answered immediately. Deacon Wan nodded slightly. "I just confirmed with Elder Su that he did go to the endless territories 3,000 years ago and left an opportunity for a little guy named Jiu Luo. As for what you said about acknowledging him as your master, it is true. However, Elder Su said that he is currently in closed-door cultivation and will only come out after some time. Therefore, he wants me to settle you down first. When he comes out of closed-door cultivation, you can formally kowtow and acknowledge him as your master. No problem. Zhu Luo was delighted. By the way, this heavenly marquis brother beside me is my good friend. He came with me from the endless territories. I wonder if he can come with me? Your good friend. Deacon Wan glanced at Jian Wushuang. He nodded again and said, "Since you are about to take Elder Su as your master, you must be a disciple of the young divine sect. A core disciple invites a good friend to the sect as a guest. Of course, the young divine sect won't refuse. You too, come with me." After that, Deacon Wan led Zhu Luo and Jian Wushuang into the young divine sect. When they entered the sect, Jian Wushuang and Zhu Luo immediately saw a magnificent and even shocking scene. They saw a dense cluster of 30,000-meter-tall mountains standing in every corner. There were endless pavilions and palaces. Some were suspended in the void, while others stood on the mountains. The surrounding void was filled with white clouds. There were even some strange beasts and immortal birds. They were magnificent and fascinating. Chapter 3065. Senior Brother Baixiao, thanks. These are the real big sections. They are so magnificent that the sects in the endless territories can't compare to them. Zhu Luo walked behind Deacon Wan and sighed from time to time. Jian Wushuang also nodded secretly. Although the young divine sect was just a sect, it was actually a world in a secret realm of heaven and earth. The interior of the sect was indeed magnificent. Our young divine sect is one of the 12 first firmament divine sections. Furthermore, the founder of our young divine sect is a true master of principles. Although he has already fallen, the many things he left behind have benefited our young divine sect immensely. Furthermore, our young divine sect is extremely ancient. Countless years have passed since it was founded. This foundation isn't something an ordinary sect can compare to. This is your first time in the sect, so you don't know much. When you take Elder Su as your master and truly integrate into the young divine sect, you'll know how lucky you are to be able to become a subordinate of the young divine sect, Deacon Wan said from the front. Upon hearing this, Zhu Luo's expectations grew. At this moment, "Oh, what's going on there?" Zhu Luo suddenly looked at the void beside him. In that empty space, there was a huge floating martial arts practice field. At this moment, there were many people gathered on the martial arts practice field. The people gathered there all looked very young, and most of them were only false saints or first or second level true saints. There were even some divine masters. It was very obvious that they were all disciples of the young divine sect. And with so many disciples gathered together, it was obvious that something had happened. Deacon Wan also glanced at the martial arts practice field and then smiled. "Well, it's a coincidence that you're here today. Baixiao, the #1 genius of our young divine sect, just came back from the divine ancestor Dao field. Along with him are a few of his good friends from the divine ancestor Dao field. Because it's rare for him to come back, the sect master personally ordered him to have a good exchange with some core disciples of our young divine sect." "Is that so?" Zhu Luo raised his eyebrows. "The divine ancestor Daoist sect." Jian Wushuang's expression changed. "I've heard of the divine ancestor Daoist sect. It's one of the 3 free organizations in the divine beginning world. Could Senior Brother Baixiao have joined the divine ancestor Daoist sect?" "Yes." Deacon Wan nodded. At the same time, he said proudly, "Baixiao is the most outstanding genius disciple of our young divine sect. He's even ranked at the top among all the geniuses in our sect's history. 100 years ago, he joined the divine ancestor Daoist sect and entered the Daoist palace, which specializes in cultivating top geniuses. He was also lucky enough to be under the tutelage of an invincible immortal saint from the divine ancestor Taoist sect. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He knew about the divine ancestor Taoist sect from Shuebei, but he had never heard of the Tao Palace. However, from what Deacon Wan said, he understood that the Tao Palace should be the same as the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, which were used to cultivate top geniuses. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance had the Heaven-Cleaving 3 palaces, and the divine ancestor Taoist sect also had a Tao Palace. As expected, the space-time temple should also have a special place to cultivate geniuses. Since Baixiao was able to join the Taoist Rite Temple and was able to be taken in as a disciple by an invincible immortal saint, his talent was indeed not considered weak. Zhu Luo, you have just arrived at my young divine sect, and yet you are able to see Baixiao. Consider yourself lucky. In a few days, Baixiao will return to the divine ancestor Taoist Rite Temple with a few of his good friends. This is a rare opportunity. Do you want to go and look for Baixiao as well to exchange ideas with him? Deacon Wan suddenly asked. Is that possible? Zhu Luo was clearly very excited. Of course. Deacon Wan smiled. All right, let's hurry over. Zhu Luo could not wait any longer. The 3 of them immediately changed directions and quickly arrived at the floating martial arts practice field. When they arrived at the martial arts practice field, they happened to see that handsome young man, Baixiao, dressed in white robes, had easily defeated a 2nd-level true saint disciple of the young divine sect. This scene also caused the surrounding people to cry out in surprise. One had to know that Baixiao's own realm was only a 1st-level true saint. Additionally, it was worth mentioning that Baixiao was also skilled in the Tao of the sword. Baixiao. Deacon Wan walked forward, and his voice clearly became gentler. Oh, Deacon Wan! Baixiao glanced at Deacon Wan and smiled. Is there something the matter? It's like this. This little fellow is called Zhu Luo. He was a disciple Elder Su took in 3,000 years ago in the Endless Territories. Today, he just arrived at our young divine sect and happened to see you conversing with the disciples of our sect. I told him not to miss this opportunity. So he came over. Deacon Wan said, Elder Su's disciple. Baixiao's expression changed. As far as I know, Elder Su has very high standards. To be able to catch his eye and take him in as a disciple, his strength and talent must be extraordinary. Junior brother Zhu Luo, let's spar a bit. Thank you for your guidance. Senior brother. Zhu Luo was incomparably excited as he took a deep breath. Senior brother Baixiao, be careful. Zhu Luo finished speaking. Boom! A powerful aura suddenly erupted like a volcano that had been silent for hundreds of millions of years. Zhu Luo's figure suddenly charged forward, and the blood-colored battle saber on his back was instantly unsheathed. Walala! A bewitching blood-colored blade, light, appeared out of thin air, directly piercing through the void. It was as if the entire world had been split apart by this blood-colored blade light. The surrounding void also became completely dark. It was incomparably dark. Under this endless darkness, this blood-colored blade light appeared extremely dazzling. It was even extremely intoxicating. Seeing this blade light, many of the surrounding heavenly god sect disciples revealed shocked expressions. This was because the aura and power of Zhu Luo's blade was already comparable to the full strength attack of a rank 2 true saint. Not bad. Even Baixiao nodded slightly, and then he took a step forward. He took a step forward and closed the distance between him and Zhu Luo. Then he casually swung his sword. Clang! Clang! 2 consecutive strikes appeared extremely relaxed. However, the first strike directly changed the direction of Zhu Luo's blade. The second strike passed by Zhu Luo and cut off one of his arms. This too powerful. Senior apprentice brother Baixiao only used the divine power of a rank 1 true saint, but his swordsmanship is too terrifying. This Ju Luo guy's saber is already so terrifying, but in front of senior apprentice brother Baixiao, he has no ability to resist at all. Exclamations immediately sounded in the surroundings. As for Ju Luo, as a true saint, even if his divine body completely collapsed, he could rely on his immortal body to regenerate. Just one arm, Ju Luo was able to instantly recover. Amazing! Ju Luo's gaze was also incomparably hot as he stared at Baixiao. Senior brother Baixiao, your swordsmanship is truly amazing. Among all the first-level true saints I've seen, apart from the heavenly Marquis brothers, your swordsmanship should be the strongest. Chapter 3066. Swordsmanship. Ju Luo was straightforward and straightforward. He did not think too much about it. He did think Baixiao's swordsmanship was powerful, but at the same time, he also mentioned Jian Wushuang. The heavenly Marquis brothers. Baixiao's eyes slightly moved. Junior brother Ju Luo, who are the heavenly Marquis brothers you mentioned just now? This, Ju Luo, was startled. He immediately realized that he had said the wrong thing. He immediately said, Senior martial brother Baixiao, don't misunderstand. I'm not saying that your sword techniques are inferior to the heavenly Marquis brothers. I just think that the sword techniques of the two of you are very impressive. Now that you mention it, I'm even more curious. Baixiao laughed. Even in the Dao Palace that is filled with monsters, there are only a handful of first-level true saints who are comparable to me in terms of sword Dao and sword techniques. The meaning behind your words just now is clear that your heavenly Marquis brothers can be compared to me in terms of sword techniques. In fact, they might even be stronger than me. Ju Luo frowned. Deacon Wan smiled and said, Baixiao, your junior brother Ju Luo has just come from the endless territory, so his vision is inevitably limited. You don't have to take it seriously. As for his heavenly Marquis brother, I know that I'm the little guy next to me, but he also just came from the endless territory. Oh, Ju Luo's eyes moved slightly, and then he looked directly at Jian Wushuang. Many disciples of the young divine sect also looked at Jian Wushuang. As for Jian Wushuang, he touched his nose with a strange expression. He did not feel anything when Ju Luo fought with Baixiao, but when Ju Luo lost and said that, Jian Wushuang knew it was going to be bad. He knew very well that a top genius like Baixiao had his own pride. Even in the Dao Palace, which was full of geniuses, his pride would not be weakened. Even if there were more talented people in the Dao Palace, he would also dare to compete with stronger geniuses. But now, Ju Luo's words clearly meant that Baixiao's swordsmanship might not be as good as his. Even if Ju Luo just said it casually, it would still attract Baixiao's attention. As expected, now Baixiao came to find him. Are you the heavenly Marquis brother that junior brother Ju Luo mentioned? Baixiao stared at Jian Wushuang. Yes, I am. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. Is your swordsmanship very powerful? Baixiao asked. It's just SOSO, Jian Wushuang replied. Just SOSO? That can't be right. Baixiao smiled. Junior brother Juluo's talent is not bad. Since he just said that, he must have seen your swordsmanship and knows that your swordsmanship is extraordinary. This makes me curious. How about we have a head-on swordsmanship competition here? A swordsmanship competition? Jian Wushuang smiled. The surrounding disciples of the young divine sect immediately burst into an uproar. Did you hear that? Senior brother Baixiao wants to compete with this person in swordsmanship. Weren't we the ones who went to ask for senior brother Baixiao's advice before? Why is senior brother Baixiao taking the initiative to compete with him now? It's all because of junior brother Ju Luo's words just now. His words clearly mean that senior brother Baixiao's swordsmanship is not as good as his heavenly marquis brother. If I were senior brother Baixiao, I would definitely be unconvinced in my heart. I would definitely find this person and compete with him. The sound of private discussions also resounded throughout the martial arts practice field. There were 3 figures standing quietly beside the crowd. Like Baixiao, these 3 people were top geniuses from the Dao Palace. When they heard Baixiao mention the competition to Jian Wushuang, the 3 people looked at each other and smiled. Baixiao, your junior brother just said it unintentionally. You don't have to be so serious, right? The red-haired man, with his arms crossed, said with a smile. That's right. This senior brother of yours just came from endless territories and has seen some geniuses before. He just randomly met someone whose swordsmanship is more outstanding and felt that he was very powerful. This is very normal. There's no need for you to be so calculative, a black-robed young man said. In my opinion, it's better to forget about it, the beautiful woman in golden armor said at the end. The 3 of them seemed to be trying to persuade Baixiao, but in fact, they were all gloating. Baixiao was arrogant, and like Baixiao, they were all from the Dao Palace. Of course, there were also arrogant people. They were not happy with what Zhu Luo had said. After all, they were the top geniuses selected by the divine ancestor Dao Palace. They stood at the top of the entire divine beginning world. How could any one of them be comparable to them? Brother Heavenly Marquis, Zhu Luo looked at Jian Wushuang apologetically. He had said it casually and unintentionally, but he did not expect it to bring so much trouble to Jian Wushuang. This battle is inevitable. Baixiao's eyes sparkled as he stared at Jian Wushuang. How about it? Do you dare to compete? Jian Wushuang shrugged and said casually, since you want to compete, fine, I'll grant you your wish. Very good. Here, you and I will only use the divine power of an ordinary rank 1 true saint to compete in swordsmanship. I'll let you fight first. Baixiao smiled with absolute confidence. Let me fight first? Are you sure? Jian Wushuang looked at Baixiao with interest. Of course. Baixiao nodded, but he did not take Jian Wushuang seriously. In that case, I won't stand on ceremony. Jian Wushuang waved his hand, and the Blood Mountain sword appeared in his hand. In the Bodhi world, I created a complete peerless sword manual with 7 sword techniques. Except for the Shi Xiang, Star Dream, and the 9th Firmament illusionary sword realm, I haven't experienced any real combat with these 7 sword techniques. Now, I'll use this Baixiao to test my sword techniques. Jian Wushuang tightened his grip on the Blood Mountain sword, a faint smile on his face. Then, under the watchful eyes of the surrounding disciples, he moved. Buzz, buzz, buzz. One after another, strange figures suddenly burst out. At this moment, hundreds and thousands of Jian Wushuang appeared in the world. Space-time illusionary body? Such a crude method is still being used? Baixiao laughed disdainfully. Space-time phantoms was a technique that could be used after comprehending the first stage of the space-time principles. Most divine masters who had comprehended the space-time principles could easily use hundreds or thousands of phantoms. Compared to true saints, it was indeed a very crude technique. However, Jian Wushuang did not say anything. After the phantoms burst out at the same time, he suddenly took a step forward, and the Blood Mountain sword in his hand fell straight down. Baixiao, the 3 genius disciples from the Dao Palace, and many disciples from the young divine sect only saw a flash of sword shadow. Chapter 3067, The Moment of Life and Death Buzz. The void had calmed down again, and Jian Wushuang's thousands of space-time phantoms had disappeared. However, Jian Wushuang had already arrived behind Baixiao. Thank you, Jian Wushuang said lightly, and the Blood Mountain sword had been put back into his universe bag. Baixiao, on the other hand, was completely stunned with his eyes wide open. Not only him, but Deacon Wan and the 3 genius disciples from the Dao Palace were also shocked. On the other hand, the disciples of the young divine sect were confused. What happened? Is it over? What happened just now? Has senior brother Baixiao defeated the heavenly Marquis brothers? The disciples of the young divine sect asked each other. Shut up! A low shout suddenly sounded. The one who had shouted was a peak rank 2 true saint who specialized in sword Dao. At this moment, this peak rank 2 true saint's body was trembling, and his eyes were filled with unprecedented shock. He's lost. Senior brother, Baixiao has lost. The peak stage 2nd rank true saint said. What? The disciples of the young divine sect were all shocked. It's too fast. That sword just now was too fast. The peak stage 2nd rank true saint exclaimed. That extremely fast sword was unbelievably fast. Senior brother, Baixiao didn't even have time to react before he was defeated. Didn't you notice that there was a white mark on senior brother Baixiao's right shoulder? That white mark was left behind by that heavenly Marquis brother's longsword. White mark. There really is a white mark, and it was clearly left behind just now. Senior brother Baixiao really lost. These young divine sect disciples instantly erupted into an intense clamor, and everyone's faces were filled with disbelief. Not to mention them, even Baixiao's mind was somewhat muddled. How could it be so fast? He really could not figure it out. By that moment, Jian Wushuang's sword move was too fast. It was so fast that he could not react at all, and was already defeated. The white mark on his right shoulder was indeed left by Jian Wushuang's longsword. Moreover, Jian Wushuang had shown mercy. If Jian Wushuang's sword move had been aimed at his neck, his entire head would have been cut off. Taking a deep breath, Baixiao looked at Jian Wushuang again, his expression becoming more serious than ever. What was the name of your sword? I created it myself in the moment of life and death, Jian Wushuang said indifferently. The moment of life and death. Baixiao was startled. He immediately recalled the sword, or, to be more precise, that moment. It was an extremely short, almost negligible moment. Jian Wushuang used his swordsmanship and directly swept past him. In a normal fight, that moment could indeed decide life and death. The moment of life and death referred to that moment. This sword move was the fastest and most terrifying sword move of the 7 sword moves created by Jian Wushuang. This sword move was pure speed and extremely fast. It was completely different from Star Dream and the 9th heaven of illusionary sword. Although Star Dream was fast, the most powerful sword move was the tearing power contained in the sword edge. The 9th heaven of illusionary sword was also a sword move that emphasized speed. However, this sword move moved 9 times in an extremely short period of time. Each sword move was faster than the last, making the opponent tired of defending and fighting. It was best to use it to suppress the opponent. However, in the moment of life and death, this was a killer move. One sword attack could decide life and death in an instant. With Jian Wushuang's current strength, even a rank 4 true saint would not be able to withstand such a fast sword attack if he used his full strength. Although Baixiao's strength was impressive, and his sword principle and swordsmanship were not weak in front of Jian Wushuang, or to be exact, in front of Jian Wushuang's moment of life and death swordsmanship, he did not have any room to display it. Now, I finally understand why junior brother Zhu Luo said that. He is right. In terms of sword principle and swordsmanship, I am inferior to you. Baixiao looked at Jian Wushuang and said, seriously. He was arrogant, but he was not a narrow-minded person. Before Jian Wushuang showed his strength, Jiu Luo said that his swordsmanship was inferior to Jian Wushuang. Of course, he was not convinced. But now, in the real fight, the result had been determined in an instant. He was also convinced of Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship. I can only show that move just now, Jian Wushuang said with a faint smile. Is that so? Baixiao took a deep look at Jian Wushuang. Then he said, Deacon Wan, Mr. Heaven Marquis is extremely talented in sword principle. He is an out-and-out genius. It is our good fortune that such a genius can come to our young divine sect. We must treat him well. After saying that, Baixiao gave Deacon Wan a meaningful look. Deacon Wan understood. My young friend, let me take you to where you live, Deacon Wan said in a gentle tone. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly, and then followed Deacon Wan with Jiu Luo after Jian Wushuang left. The martial arts practice field was in an uproar. The disciples of the Xiaotian sect were all talking about the fight just now. Meanwhile, Baixiao had come to the side of the three Dao Palace geniuses. You three, you should have seen what happened just now, right? Baixiao asked. To be honest, I could barely see a sword shadow, the red-haired man said. Me too. His sword was too fast. If it was directed at me, I would have been the same as you. I wouldn't have had time to react. The beautiful woman in golden armor said. Hey Qing, what about you? You're the strongest among the four of us, and you're also good at speed. If it had been you just now, would you have been able to block that sword attack? Baixiao looked toward the black-robed young man at the end. The black-robed young man frowned slightly. After a long while, he slowly shook his head. I'm not confident. Not confident. These three simple words caused the bodies and hearts of the four people to sink. They were all top geniuses from the Dao Palace, yet they were all frightened by the other party's sword just now. Moreover, they actually had no way of receiving that sword. Although we don't know the exact origin of this heavenly marquis, just the sword technique he just displayed is enough to show that his talent in the Tao of the sword is extremely high. He is an out-and-out genius in the Tao of the sword. In terms of talent, he is probably only stronger than the few of us, the red-haired man said with a serious expression. Chapter 3068. Master has arrived _ is he stronger than them? No one dared to deny this. The most important thing is that the heavenly sword marquis only used one sword attack. Although he said that it was the only sword attack he could use, we have no idea how strong his talent in sword Dao is. It's still unknown, and we have no way of testing it out, the black-robed youth said. That's why it's so troublesome. But no matter what, just the talent he's displaying right now should be enough to make the Dao Palace take him seriously, the red-haired man said. Baixiao, this is within the Young Divine Sect. The Heavenly Sword Marquis is also a guest in your sect. What do you think we should do? The beautiful woman in golden armor looked at Baixiao. I've already reported this matter to my master, Baixiao said directly. Lord Bingfeng, the red-haired man, and the other two immediately looked over. It's a coincidence. Master happened to be visiting his old friend in the first heavenly layer. He rushed over from where he was, and will be here in less than 3 days. Once Master arrives and personally meets the Heavenly Sword Marquis, we can decide what to do then, Baixiao said. Yes, Master Iceberg is an invincible immortal saint, and one of the higher-ups of the Dao Palace. We can't find out the truth about the Heavenly Sword Marquis, but he will be exposed in front of Master Iceberg. At that time, we will see how talented he is. At the same time, we can decide how much we have to pay to recruit him, the red-haired man said. There was no doubt that Dao Palace would be interested in a sword principal genius like Jian Wushuang. As for how much it would cost Dao Palace to recruit him, it would depend on Jian Wushuang's specific talent and strength. Deacon Wan arranged a place for Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo before leaving. Jiu Luo stayed with Jian Wushuang. Brother Heavenly Marquis, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that, Zhu Luo said apologetically. I know. Jian Wushuang nodded. He knew that Zhu Luo did not mean to do that, so he did not blame the latter. However, after this collision with Baixiao, he was afraid that he would encounter some trouble. Of course, it was not a big trouble, and it would not pose any threat to him. Baixiao and the others are from the Tao Palace of the Divine Ancestor Taoist sect, and the nature of the Tao Palace is the same as the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces. Now that I have shown some tricks in front of Baixiao and the others, they will certainly report this matter to the higher-ups of the Tao Palace. Perhaps the higher-ups of the Tao Palace already know about it and have sent people over, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. The experts sent by the Tao Palace must have come to rope him in. Whatever, he'll just take it one step at a time. Jian Wushuang did not think about it anymore. Then, he temporarily settled down in the Young Divine Sect. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Outside the mountain gate of the Young Divine Sect, 2 figures slowly walked over from the distant void. They were clearly still quite a distance away from the Young Divine Sect, but in just a few steps, the 2 of them had already arrived at the entrance. Lord, we have already arrived at the Young Divine Sect. A white-robed man with an ice-cold aura spoke with a hint of respect. Amen. The one who replied was a white-haired elder with a child's face. This elder was thin and weak, and his eyes were extremely small, like the eyes of a mouse. The elder with a child's face and white hair looked down at the ancient sect below, but his expression slowly changed. The Young Divine Sect, the one who founded the Young Divine Sect back, then still has a certain degree of friendship with me. We even went to a dangerous place to explore together. Unfortunately, his ambition was too great, and he wanted to search for a great opportunity in the cosmic battlefield. In the end, he died in the cosmic battlefield. The elder with a child's face and white hair sighed softly. His voice was also rather deep. Iceberg, isn't that disciple of yours in the Young Divine Sect? Send a message to him, the white-haired elder instructed. Yes. The iceberg-like, white-robed man nodded slightly. He then took out his token and sent a message to Baixiao. After sending the message, the 2 of them waited here for a short while. The mystic realm where the Young Divine Sect was located suddenly shook. Soon after, the mountain gate opened, and dozens of figures came out to welcome them. These dozens of figures were led by a middle-aged man in a loose robe. Behind him were the many elders of the Young Divine Sect, and Baixiao and the 3 geniuses from the Tao Palace were also among them. Soon, they arrived in front of the white-robed man and the white-robed elder with a childlike face and white hair. Ha! Our Young Divine Sect is truly honored to have Mr. Iceberg come personally. The middle-aged man in the loose robe let out a hearty laugh. However, he suddenly noticed the white-robed elder with a childlike face beside the ice peak. This elder exuded an extremely unique aura, and his entire person seemed to be incompatible with the surrounding space and time. This is the principal's master. The eyes of the middle-aged man in the loose robe suddenly narrowed. It's Lord Baijiu. Baixiao and the 3 Tao Palace disciples immediately recognized the white-haired old man. Lord Baijiu actually came personally. Sect Master Ceylon, the iceberg-like white-robed man. Iceberg looked over at the middle-aged man in the long robe. This is Lord Baijiu. He happens to be in the first heavenly layer this time, so he came with me. Young Divine Sect Master C. Lon greets Lord Baijiu. Young Divine Sect Master, and the elders behind him immediately bowed. Although the Young Divine Sect was one of the 12 divine sects in the first sky, the strongest expert in the divine sect right now was only a peak rank 7 true saint. In terms of strength, He was far inferior to Iceberg, facing a principal's master. He was naturally trembling with fear. No need for formalities. Baixiao waved his hand. He said, "The founder of your young divine sect has a certain relationship with me. This old man received news that a good sword Dao genius has appeared in your sect, so I came over to take a look with Iceberg. Lord has a relationship with my sect." The sect master of the young divine sect, Ceylon, was delighted. "Sect Master Ceylon, please lead the way," Iceberg urged. "Please follow me." Ceylon immediately led Baixiao and Iceberg into the sect. Soon, they arrived at the place where Jian Wushuang and Zhu Luo lived. "Baixiao, go and ask him to come out," Ceylon instructed. "Yes." Baixiao immediately walked forward. Meanwhile, Iceberg asked, "I received a message from Baixiao earlier. I know that a sword Dao genius has appeared in your Xiaotian sect, but according to what Baixiao said, this person is not a disciple of your Xiaotian sect." "That's indeed the case. This little fellow called Heavenly Sword Marquis is merely a guest in our Xiaotian sect. He has nothing to do with our Xiaotian sect, so no matter what choice he has, our Xiaotian sect cannot force him," Ceylon said. Chapter 3069. "Clamp, are you just a guest?" Iceberg's expression was cold. Soon, Baixiao had brought Jian Wushuang and Zhu Luo out. When he saw the experts standing in front of him, even though Jian Wushuang was prepared, he was still a little surprised. "There's actually a principal's master here." Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with surprise. "Heavenly Sword Marquis, let me introduce you. This is the current sect master of the Young Divine Sect, Sect Master Ceylon," Baixiao introduced. "Sect Master Ceylon." Jian Wushuang bowed slightly to the middle-aged man in a loose robe. "Get up." Sect Master Ceylon smiled faintly. "Since you're a guest of the Young Divine Sect, there's no need to be so polite. This is my master, the famous sword Saint Iceberg of the divine beginning world. He's invincible among the immortal saints," Baixiao introduced. Jian Wushuang immediately looked at Iceberg. He was dressed in a white robe, and his aura was as cold as an ice mountain. Jian Wushuang felt a vague sword essence from Iceberg, which was so strong that it made his heart palpitate. According to Baixiao's introduction, Iceberg was nicknamed Sword Saint Iceberg, and he was an invincible immortal saint. With such great strength, his swordsmanship must have reached the peak. He was not sure about other things. However, Jian Wushuang knew that Sword Saint Iceberg must have reached the third stage of Sword Principle, and his sword essence could evolve into all things. "Greetings, Master Iceberg." Jian Wushuang also bowed respectfully. "Yes." Iceberg nodded slightly, appearing very cold. "And this one?" Baixiao spoke again, but his voice became obviously excited. "This is Master Baixiao. Master Baixiao is one of the higher-ups of our divine ancestor Taoist sect. He is a great principles master." Jian Wushuang immediately looked at the white-haired elder Baixiao. Just like when he met Mo Shan, Baixiao gave him the feeling that he was not in this space-time. His aura was also very strange. However, it was this strange feeling that made Jian Wushuang extremely shocked. Principal's master was a super expert who stood at the top of the third heaven. Although Jian Wushuang's combat strength was good, he was still far from being a principal's master. Facing Principal's master head-on, even Jian Wushuang was a little afraid. "Greetings, Master Baixiao," Jian Wushuang said respectfully. "You're welcome, young man." Baixiao smiled calmly, and Jian Wushuang immediately felt relieved. "Heavenly Marquis Jian, I heard that you have good talent in sword principle. 3 days ago, you fought with my disciple Baixiao and defeated him with only one sword. Is that true?" Iceberg looked at Jian Wushuang. "Yes." Jian Wushuang nodded. "Although my disciple's talent in sword principle is not the best, he is still outstanding." However, he can't even take one of your sword moves. This makes me very curious. How about this? You can show me that sword move again. Iceberg said seriously. I'll show you. Jian Wushuang was stunned. The people around him were also very strange. No matter how powerful Jian Wushuang was, Iceberg was an invincible existence among the immortal saints. How could Jian Wushuang be qualified to fight with such an expert? Don't worry, I just want to see your swordsmanship. I don't really want to fight with you, Iceberg said. Is that so? Jian Wushuang felt relieved, but then his eyes lit up. An invincible expert who was good at sword principle, and an immortal saint was standing in front of him, wanting to see his swordsmanship. This was a once-in-lifetime opportunity. Heavenly Sword Marquis, you don't have to be afraid. As your master, I won't hurt you. You just need to display the sword move that defeated me, Baixiao said. In that case, please enlighten me. Jian Wushuang took out the Blood Mountain sword with a flip of his hand. The surrounding people immediately gave way to a battleground. Let's fight. Iceberg stood there coldly, and his voice was very cold. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath and moved in the next moment. Buzz, buzz. Many strange figures suddenly burst out. At this moment, hundreds and thousands of Jian Wushuang appeared in the world. These Jian Wushuang were space-time phantoms. After the phantoms burst out at the same time, Jian Wushuang suddenly took a step forward, and the Blood Mountain sword in his hand fell straight down. Wushuang's sword manual, life, and death moment. In just a moment, Jian Wushuang had already performed a killing move. A sword shadow flashed and then disappeared. Clang! A sound like the collision of metals was heard, and then the whole world became quiet. The experts on the field had their eyes fixed on the center of the void. Sword Saint Iceberg, who was as cold as an ice mountain, was still standing there. He did not draw his sword, and one of his hands was behind his back. As for the other hand, it had already reached out, and on two of the fingers of the hand, majestic divine power gathered. It was holding a cold and sharp longsword. This sword was the Blood Mountain sword. What? Jian Wushuang widened his eyes and looked at Iceberg in astonishment. He had long known that Iceberg was ridiculously strong, and his understanding of sword principle must be much higher than his. But he did not expect Iceberg to be so strong. In the instant of life and death, in the unparalleled sword manual he created, this move was so fast that ordinary experts could not react in time. Of course, with Iceberg's strength, he could react in time, but the way he blocked the sword, it was really hard to accept. He actually used two of his fingers to directly clamp the Blood Mountain sword. Jian Wushuang had been cultivating in this life and had encountered many people who were stronger than him. However, this was the first time someone had used two fingers to directly clamp his Blood Mountain sword. The difference in strength was too great. Your sword is indeed good. Iceberg's expression was still cold, and his eyes did not contain any emotion as he stared at Jian Wushuang. Humph! Jian Wushuang snorted. With a thought, a shocking evil aura suddenly burst out from the Blood Mountain sword. Buzz! The Blood Mountain sword shook violently, and a shrill sword hum echoed in the world. Then the Blood Mountain sword began to struggle crazily under Iceberg's two fingers. Oh! Iceberg raised his eyebrows. He looked at the Blood Mountain sword in surprise, but then he flicked his finger. Chapter 3070. Dao Palace's invitation. Clang! There was a crisp sound. Jian Wushuang felt that his Blood Mountain sword was hit by an extremely terrifying force. In an instant, the Blood Mountain sword changed its direction and almost fell out of Jian Wushuang's hand. Jian Wushuang followed the Blood Mountain sword and retreated to the side. So powerful! Jian Wushuang exclaimed. Are there any other sword skills? Show them all, Iceberg said coldly. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned slightly. Of course, he had other sword skills. The Wushuang sword manual was a complete sword skill. There were 7 sword skills, and the moment of life and death was only one of them. However, in front of so many people, Jian Wushuang did not want to show all the other sword skills in the Wushuang sword manual. After all, if he displayed all the other 6 sword techniques, it would be obvious that he had created a complete sword technique. Moreover, all the sword techniques were embryonic forms of the sword technique, which would cause a great commotion. Therefore, even though the opportunity to fight with an invincible immortal saint was right in front of him, Jian Wushuang still did not intend to continue. "My lord, this is the sword skill that I used to defeat Baixiao. Other than this sword skill, none of the other sword skills are good enough," Jian Wushuang said straightforwardly. "Just this sword skill." Iceberg frowned, obviously a little disappointed. The sword skill that Jian Wushuang just displayed proved that Jian Wushuang was a sword principle genius, but that was all. After all, they came from the Dao Palace. The Dao Palace, like the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces of the heaven-cleaving alliance, was filled with all kinds of monsters and evildoers. Heavenly Sword Marquis Sword just now has reached the level of a 4th-level absolute art. His swordsmanship has brought his speed and his comprehension of the space-time principles to the extreme. It is indeed very rare for a 1st-level true saint, and his basic sword principle is very solid. However, among the geniuses and evildoers in the Dao Palace, he is only at the middle level, Iceberg thought to himself. There were countless monsters in the Dao Palace. Among these monsters, there were actually quite a few who had created rank 4 ultimate arts at the rank 1 true saint realm. This was not too surprising. After all, the monsters in the Dao Palace were all able to challenge those of a higher level. Some were even able to directly challenge those of 2 levels higher. The reason why their battle prowess was so outstanding was not just because they knew some special secret arts that could increase the power of their divine power. Most importantly, their comprehension of the principles and Dao was very high. Take Mountain King, Evil Master, and Mirage Water, whom Jian Wushuang had met in the White Bone region, for example. These 3 were only rank 1 true saints, but any one of them could easily suppress a rank 3 true saint. They could even kill a rank 3 true saint with some special means and treasures. Their battle strength was so great, their comprehension of principles and Dao was very good. Mountain King and Evil Master had also created rank 4 absolute arts. The reason why Jian Wushuang could easily defeat the 3 of them was that his peerless sword manual was very good, and his divine power was much stronger than the 3 of them. However, if it was just the comprehension of principles and Dao Mountain King, and the other 2 were actually not inferior to Jian Wushuang. Heavenly Sword Marquis, Iceberg spoke again. You do have some talent in sword principle. If you are well groomed, you will have great achievements in the future. The Dao Palace of the Divine Ancestor Taoist Sect is to recruit many top geniuses and monsters in the divine beginning world. Are you interested in following me to the Dao Palace? Iceberg was very direct and did not beat around the bush. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang felt even weirder. He had guessed that the experts of the Dao Palace had come to recruit him. He had only used the sword skill of life and death for a moment because he thought it was too troublesome. He did not expect Iceberg to still want him to go to the Dao Palace. Jian Wushuang began to ponder. When the elders and disciples of the young divine sect heard Iceberg's words, they immediately became restless. All they saw were fiery gazes looking at Jian Wushuang. These gazes were more or less filled with envy and jealousy. The Dao Palace was a place specially used by the Divine Ancestor Taoist Sect to nurture disciples of top geniuses. It was a place that countless geniuses in the divine beginning world yearned to go. As one of the 12 divine sects, the young divine sect had existed in the first heaven for so many years. In history, there were only 2 people who had joined the Dao Palace. Even including Baixiao, there were only 3 people. Hearing that Iceberg had invited Jian Wushuang to join the Dao Palace, the experts and disciples of the Young Divine Sect were naturally envious. However, although they were envious, Jian Wushuang did not want to agree at all. He was already thinking about how to refuse. Heavenly Sword Marquis, Master has invited you personally. Why don't you agree? Baixiao looked over. Brother Sword Heavenly, Zhu Luo said, it was a rare opportunity for them to join the Dao Palace. Who would be so stupid as to refuse? Jian Wushuang was about to speak. Suddenly, buzz, a magnificent aura swept over. This aura clearly came from outside the Young Divine Sect. However, even though there was a layer of heaven and earth's secret realm between them, that aura had already spread to the interior of the Young Divine Sect. When they sensed this unique aura, the expressions of the many experts present, including Baijiao, who had been standing there without speaking, changed slightly. This aura is the principal's master. Sect Master Silon cried out immediately, another principal's master has arrived. The experts and disciples of the Young Divine Sect all revealed shocked expressions. Just a moment ago, the principal's master, Baijiao, had personally arrived. However, Baijiao was a member of the Dao Palace. The reason for his arrival was very obvious. They had also received the news a long time ago. And who was this principal's master, who had suddenly descended? And why had he descended? Although he did not know the intentions of the person who had come, Sect Master Silon did not dare to bring a principal's master with him. When he personally came, he immediately rose up and his mighty voice was already transmitted out. May I know which lord has descended into our Young Divine Sect. I am Mo Shan from the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. A mighty voice was transmitted from outside the Young Divine Sect. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Sect Master Silon was shocked. Mo Shan. Baijiao frowned. Senior Mo Shan? Jian Wushuang was stunned. He knew Mo Shan. The one who had been invited by the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to join the Heaven-Cleaving 3 Palaces was Mo Shan, who had reached the level of principal's master. When Mo Shan had met him, he had specially given him some pointers. For example, Jian Wushuang had obtained the gold-splitting secret manual under Mo Shan's guidance, and the embryonic form of this swordsmanship was only created after Mo Shan gave him some advice. Chapter 3071. The order, Senior Mo Shan is here? Is he here for me? Jian Wushuang had a strange look on his face. In his opinion, Mo Shan's invitation was the second time. According to the rule of the Heaven-Cleaving 3 Palaces, only 2 invitations could be given to the same genius. If both invitations were rejected, the Heaven-Cleaving 3 Palaces would not invite him for the 3rd time. Then the high-level experts of the Heaven-Cleaving 3 Palaces should not have come looking for him. But now, after knowing the identity of the person who had come, Sect Master Silon did not dare to reject him. She immediately went to personally bring him in. Very quickly, the white-haired elder Mo Shan appeared in front of everyone. Oh, is this place quite lively? The moment Mo Shan arrived, he saw the existences of Baijiao, Iceberg, and the others. Master Baijiao, you are actually here as well? Mo Shan looked at Baijiao with a strange gaze. Mo Shan, long time no see. How have you been? Baijiao's expression was somewhat unfriendly. Ha! It has been many years since we last met. The last time we met, you suffered a small loss at my hands. Looking at you, I'm afraid you still hate me, right? Mo Shan laughed heartily. Humph. Baijiao snorted and said, I can't be bothered to argue with you about the past. Tell me, why did you come to the Young Divine Sect today? Could it be because of this little fellow? You guessed correctly. I came for this heavenly sword marquis. Mo Shan directly said. How can that be? Although this little fellow's talent isn't bad, if he joins the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces, he would most likely be able to join the Heaven and Earth Palace. As for whether he would be able to join the Primordial Palace or not, it is still unknown. Such a genius shouldn't be worth it for you, the high and mighty principal's master, to personally make a trip, right? Baijiu frowned and said, Aren't you a principal's master as well? Didn't you also appear here? Mo Shan said with a playful tone, I'm different from you. I have some friendship with the founder of the Young Divine Sect. I'm just passing by to take a look. Baijiu said, It doesn't matter what you think, but I'm indeed here today for this little fellow. Mo Shan said, Even so, everything must come first, right? This little fellow was discovered by my Dao Palace first, and he was also the first to be invited by my Dao Palace. Even if you have a motive, you have to wait for him to refuse to join my Dao Palace first, Baijiu said in a low voice. No, Master of Baijiu, I'm afraid you're wrong about one thing. Mo Shan gave a strange smile. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance has long discovered this little guy called Heavenly Sword Marquis because he is a heaven-level member of our Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. When he was in the Endless Territories, our Heaven-Cleaving Alliance had invited him to join the Heaven-Cleaving 3 palaces. We even invited him twice, but he just refused. If you don't believe me, you can ask the little guy yourself. Baijiu immediately looked at Jian Wushuang. The Heaven-Cleaving 3 palaces did invite me twice, and the second time was personally invited by Elder Mo Shan, Jian Wushuang said with a straight face. See, even if it's first come, first served, it's not your Dao Palace's turn, Mo Shan sneered. Humph, so what? You said it yourself. The Heaven-Cleaving 3 palaces have invited this little guy twice, but he refused. According to the rules of the 3 Heaven-Cleaving palaces, they won't invite him for a third time, right? Baijiu stared at Mo Shan. No, of course not. Mo Shan shook his head directly. According to the rules of the Heaven-Cleaving 3 palaces, any genius will only invite him twice at most. This is an iron law set by the Alliance Master, and no one can violate it. However, I'm not here today to invite this little guy to join the Heaven-Cleaving 3 palaces, but I have another matter. What's the matter? Baijiu asked. It has nothing to do with you. Why are you in a hurry? Mo Shan glanced at Baijiu, then walked up to Jian Wushuang. Little guy, I'm here to convey the orders of the 3 palace masters of the 3 palaces. Mo Shan said seriously, 3 palace masters. Baijiu's expression immediately changed. He was a high-ranking official of the Dao Palace, and the Dao Palace usually had exchanges and competitions with the Heaven-Cleaving 3 palaces. Therefore, he naturally knew about the 3 palace masters of the Heaven-Cleaving 3 palaces. They were the 3 principals masters who stood at the peak of the divine beginning realm. They held an important position in the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, and they were only second to the mysterious Alliance Master of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. The 3 of them had given an order, and this order had something to do with Heavenly Sword Marquis. Jian Wushuang also looked at Mo Shan solemnly. The 3 palace masters have said that you are extremely talented and have unlimited potential. Your future achievements are limitless. Although you are unwilling to join the Heaven-Cleaving 3 palaces because of personal problems, the 3 palace masters still hope that you can receive the most training. Therefore, after a discussion, they decided to make an exception and allow you to enter the Heaven-Cleaving Secret Realm once. Heaven-Cleaving Secret Realm. Mo Shan said. His expression was solemn. Heaven-Cleaving Secret Realm. Jian Wushuang was puzzled. The experts and disciples of the Young Divine Sect were also puzzled. Even Sect Master Silan Baixiao and the other Dao Palace disciples did not know what the so-called heaven-cleaving secret realm was. Only Baijiu and Iceberg were shocked when they heard the words heaven-cleaving secret realm. Baijiu, as a principal's master, was so shocked that his eyes almost popped out. How is this possible? This is impossible. Baijiu let out two roars and stared at Emoshan. Emoshan, are you kidding me? How could the three palace masters of the heaven-cleaving three palaces give such an order? This is impossible. The heaven-cleaving mystic realm is an incredible opportunity. Countless geniuses in the heaven-cleaving three palaces drool over the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. However, there are only a few spots in the heaven-cleaving three palaces every 10,000 years. Why would they give a spot to an outsider? Baijiu was very clear about what the heaven-cleaving mystic realm represented. It was because he knew that it was impossible, at least from what he knew. The three palace masters of the heaven-cleaving three palaces would never be so generous. You don't believe me? Emoshan glanced at Baijiu and then smiled playfully. This matter has nothing to do with you. I don't care whether you believe me or not. In short, I'm here to pass on the orders of the three palace masters. You, Baijiu stared at Emoshan, but no matter how he looked at him, he could not tell that Emoshan was joking. Did the three palace masters of the heaven-cleaving three palaces really give such a generous order? Baijiu could not help murmuring in his heart. But even if the three palace masters were really generous, they should have given these opportunities to a truly amazing genius. But Heavenly Sword, Marquis, Baijiu looked at Jian Wushuang again. Chapter 3072. Heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Judging from the skills that Jian Wushuang had just displayed, although he was a genius, he was not too dazzling. Did this little guy hide his strength and skills? Baijiu could not help thinking. At this moment, Jian Wushuang asked with doubt, Elder Emoshan, what is the heaven-cleaving mystic realm that you mentioned just now? He did not know what the heaven-cleaving mystic realm was and why it caused such a big reaction from the 100 absolutes. But since it was a mystic realm, in Jian Wushuang's opinion, it should be a heaven and earth mystic realm. Emoshan explained, Little guy, you already know what the heaven-cleaving three palaces are, and you know that the heaven-cleaving three palaces have gathered countless geniuses. In addition, there are countless cultivation resources in the heaven-cleaving three palaces, and the heaven-cleaving mystic realm is one of the biggest opportunities for the heaven-cleaving three palaces. The heaven-cleaving mystic realm was opened by the leader of the heaven-cleaving alliance. It contains a great fortune. Anyone who enters the heaven-cleaving mystic realm can get great opportunities and benefits. However, it is not easy to open opportunities in the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Therefore, even in the three palaces, there are very few geniuses who are qualified to enter the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Under normal circumstances, the heaven-cleaving mystic realm will only be opened once every 10,000 years, and there will only be a maximum of 3 slots. These 3 slots are occupied by the 3 most outstanding geniuses of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces. Upon hearing Emoshan's words, Jian Wushuang was stunned. The surrounding experts and disciples of the Divine Firmament Sect were also stunned. The mystic realm opened by the mysterious alliance master of the heaven-cleaving alliance. It only opened once every 10,000 years, and there were only 3 entry slots each time. Just from these 2 points, it could be seen how rare the opportunity in the heaven-cleaving mystic realm was. However, the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces actually gave Jian Wushuang such a rare slot. Of course, it was incredible. Even Jian Wushuang himself was a little confused. This was like a pie falling from the sky, directly falling on his head. Elder Emoshan, can I really go to the heaven-cleaving mystic realm? Jian Wushuang asked with some uncertainty. Of course, There is no doubt that this is the order personally passed down by the 3 palace masters, but I don't know if you are willing to go." Mo Shan said, "Yes, of course." Jian Wushuang nodded, without thinking. The reason why he did not want to join the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces was largely that he did not know the position of the heaven-cleaving alliance. He was worried that the heaven-cleaving alliance was on the same side as the will of heaven's will. However, after meeting Shui, after learning some secrets, and knowing that the 3 freedom alliances of the divine beginning realm had nothing to do with the will of heaven's will, he no longer had much fear of the 3 freedom alliances. If Mo Shan invited him to join the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces again, he would consider it carefully instead of rejecting it directly. But now, Mo Shan did not invite him to join the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces. Instead, he gave him a great opportunity. Such a great opportunity was directly thrown at his head. Of course, he had no reason to reject it. "Little guy, take this token." Mo Shan handed a token to Jian Wushuang. "This is—" Jian Wushuang looked at the token in confusion. "This is my communication token. It will take 80 years for the heaven-cleaving mystic realm to open again. In 80 years, I will use this token to find you and take you to the heaven-cleaving mystic realm," Mo Shan said. Jian Wushuang nodded and immediately took the token. After chatting with Mo Shan looked at Baijiao and said, "Baijiao, I have finished my work. Please don't pay attention to me." Baijiao's expression changed slightly. Then he looked at Jian Wushuang and said, "Heavenly Sword Marquis, Iceberg has just invited you to join the Tao Palace, but he hasn't told you clearly about the Tao Palace. The Tao Palace is specially used by the Divine Ancestor Tao Sect to cultivate disciples of top geniuses. Countless experts have come out of the palace, and many of them have given birth to principles masters. Some of them have even become overlords in the 3rd heaven. With your talent, if you join the Tao Palace, you will definitely receive the most training. The resources in the Tao Palace alone will benefit you immensely. In addition, if you agree to join the Tao Palace, I can guarantee that you will be allowed to meditate in the Immortal Palace at least 3 times. In addition, I will also invite a principles master who specializes in Sword Tao to be your master and personally guide you." As soon as Baijiao said this, Iceberg, Baixiao, and the others looked over in astonishment. "Immortal Palace?" Baixiao's body trembled slightly. He was one of the genius disciples of the Tao Palace, and had joined the Tao Palace for quite some time. He was also familiar with some of the cultivation resources in the Tao Palace. The Immortal Palace, for example, was a place that contained great opportunities in the Tao Palace. It was also a place that many disciples of the Tao Palace yearned for. But at the same time, it was not easy for even disciples of the Tao Palace to enter the Immortal Palace to meditate. For him, he had only entered the Tao Palace once when he first entered. He only got one chance to meditate. As for whether he could get it in the future, he had to compete with other geniuses to get it. But now, before Jian Wushuang joined the Tao Palace, Baijiao had vouched for him to enter the Immortal Palace at least 3 times. The second condition was to ask a principles master who was good at sword principle to be Jian Wushuang's master. It was known that the principles masters would rarely accept disciples unless the disciple was really outstanding or had a good temper. For example, the principles masters of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces, like the disciples of the Heaven and Earth Palace and the Primitive Palace, were rarely accepted by the principles masters. Most of them could only become the disciples of some powerful, top-notch immortal saints. They were lucky enough to become the disciples of an invincible immortal saint. Only the disciples of the Chaos Palace were qualified to become the disciples of the principles masters, and they had to rely on their luck. If the 3 palaces were like this, the Tao Palace was the same. Baixiao was also lucky enough to become the disciple of Sword Saint Iceberg. But now, Baijiu had made a condition. As long as Jian Wushuang agreed to join the Dao Palace, he would immediately be assigned a principal's master who was good at sword principle to guide him. This condition was much better than Baixiao and the others. Not only Baixiao was surprised, but even Sword Saint Iceberg was also surprised, because from the process of fighting with Jian Wushuang's talent in sword principle was not that great. Chapter 3073. Two possibilities. Is it because of the heaven-cleaving mystic realm? Iceberg could not help thinking. Baijiu looked at Jian Wushuang expectantly, waiting for his answer. Jian Wushuang pondered for a moment, but in the end, he still apologized. I'm sorry, Master Baijiu, I have no intention of joining a force for the time being. Don't reject me yet. Baijiu waved his hand and said, I have a certain friendship with the founder of the Young Divine Sect, which is why I rarely come here. I'll stay here for a while, and Iceberg will stay with me. During this time, if you have any problems in cultivation or sword principle, you can come to me or Iceberg at any time. As for joining the Dao Palace, you can think about it. When Iceberg and I leave, you can give us an answer. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded. Baijiu smiled and looked at Sect Master Ceylon. Sect Master Ceylon, Iceberg, and I would like to disturb you for a while. Is that possible? Of course. Sect Master Ceylon was pleasantly surprised. If you and Mr. Iceberg are willing to be our guests, our sect would love to have you. Thank you very much. Baijiu smiled gratefully. Master Baijiu, aren't you smart? Mo Shan asked with a strange laugh. Baijiu glanced at Mo Shan and snorted. Forget it. I've already received the orders from the 3 palace masters. I won't stay any longer. Remember, it'll come back to you in 80 years. Be prepared and don't miss this opportunity. If you miss it, it'll be 10,000 years before the next opening of the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Mo Shan warned. I know. Jian Wushuang nodded. Mo Shan soon left, while Baijiu and Iceberg stayed in the Young Divine Sect. In the room where Jian Wushuang lived, Jian Wushuang sat cross-legged alone, but his expression was strange. The heaven-cleaving mystic realm is such an important place. How could the 3 palace masters of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces give me a place? Jian Wushuang murmured. He still could not figure out why the 3 palace masters gave him a place to enter the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Was it because he was talented and had great potential? However, no matter how great his potential was, he was not a member of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces. Even if the 3 palace masters wanted to recruit him, they would not give him such a precious place, right? It's not just because I'm talented and have great potential. There must be another reason. But what is the reason? Jian Wushuang was puzzled. After a while, he shook his head and said, Who cares? The heaven-cleaving alliance is not my enemy. Now that such a great opportunity is coming for me, I have no reason to refuse it. As for the Dao Palace, I don't need to pay attention to it for the time being. Jian Wushuang thought to himself, but he suddenly found something interesting. The 3 freedom alliances in the divine beginning world, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, the Space-Time Temple, and the Divine Ancestor Daoist Sect, were all related to him. First was the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. He was a heaven-rank member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Although he did not have many restrictions, he could barely be considered an expert under the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Moreover, he had already agreed to enter the Heaven-Cleaving Mystic Realm. When that time came, his relationship with the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance would definitely become even closer. He did not have much of a relationship with the Divine Ancestor Daoist Sect. However, the key point was that he had previously obtained Shui Bai's mantle. Shui Bai was an expert under the Blood Ancestor lineage of the divine ancestor Taoist sect. He had also promised Shui Bei that when he became powerful, he would rush to the divine ancestor Taoist sect, which made him have a certain relationship with the divine ancestor Taoist sect. As for the space-time temple, among the 3 freedom alliances, the first one that Jian Wushuang had come into contact with was the space-time temple. When he had obtained the mysterious golden stone, he had crossed the space-time temple in the golden stone and cultivated the space-time divine skill. At that time, he had already been a member of the space-time temple. He had a close relationship with the 3 freedom alliances. Fortunately, the 3 freedom alliances and the power of the will of heaven were not on the same level, and they were even enemies. For me now, any one of the 3 freedom alliances is a colossus. I can't resist any expert from the 3 alliances. I don't need to bother with them. They won't attack me for no reason anyway. I'd better seize the time to improve my strength, Jian Wushuang thought. At all times, Jian Wushuang firmly believed that his absolute strength was the only asset he could rely on. Taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang suddenly waved his hand, and an ice-cold expert's corpse appeared in front of him. This corpse was the corpse of the principal's master that he had obtained in the Blood North mystic realm. He was going to use this corpse to refine his Emperor's Destiny avatar. Let's begin. Jian Wushuang began to refine his first Emperor's Destiny avatar in the Young Divine Sect. At this moment, in another manner of the Young Divine Sect, Baijiao and Iceberg were sitting together. "Sir, I don't understand," Iceberg said. "Although Heavenly Sword Marquis has some talent, it's not worth our Tao Palace spending so much money to invite him. Moreover, he has already declined, but you still want me to stay here with you and give him the opportunity and time to consider. Is it just because the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces gave him a spot to enter the heaven-cleaving mystic realm? This alone is enough." Baijiao smiled. "You are also a member of the Tao Palace. Although you have not reached the level of a principal's master, you are still an invincible immortal saint. You have come into contact with many things. You should know what kind of place the heaven-cleaving mystic realm is. To put it bluntly, anyone who enters the heaven-cleaving mystic realm will be able to obtain a great fortune. With such a great opportunity, how many geniuses of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces would have to go through such a fierce battle to obtain the last 3 spots? And now, these 3 spots are given to the Heavenly Sword Marquis, which means that the geniuses from the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces only have 2 spots. How great a sacrifice is this? The 3 palace masters of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces were not stupid. Unless there was a special reason, they would never give such an order. What special reason? Iceberg was puzzled. "I don't know." Baijiao shook his head. "But according to my guess, there are only 2 possibilities. The first possibility is that this Heavenly Sword Marquis has unparalleled talent and is at least much more powerful than the geniuses in the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces' Primal Chaos Palace. The second possibility is that this Heavenly Sword Marquis has some special background or identity, so the 3 palace masters of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces used the quota of the heaven-cleaving mystic realm to express their goodwill to him." Chapter 3074. The Emperor's Life Avatar. The 3 palace masters are all trying to make friends with him? Iceberg was stunned, but he immediately shook his head. This is impossible. The 3 palace masters of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces are all standing at the top of the principal's masters. Not only are they extremely powerful, but they also have a lot of power in the heaven-cleaving alliance. Even when facing the 3 saint realm masters of the 3rd heaven, these 3 palace masters are only slightly inferior. With such existences, who else in this world can make the 3 palace masters take the initiative to make friends with them? Moreover, we have already confirmed the background of this Heavenly Sword Marquis. He has just arrived at the first sky from the endless territories. What kind of background does such a person have? You are right, I think so too. Baijiu nodded slightly. Since the second possibility is not realistic, then there is only the first possibility. It is that this heavenly sword marquis is a peerless super genius. He is even more monstrous and dazzling than the geniuses of the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces and primal chaos palace. It is just that this heavenly sword marquis talent has not been truly revealed in front of us. We just do not know. When he fought with me previously, did he always hold back? Iceberg frowned. Definitely. Also, he definitely hid more than just a tiny bit. What we saw is most likely just the tip of the iceberg, he revealed. Baijiu smiled faintly. It's because of this that I said that I would stay with you in the young divine sect for a period of time. I also told him that if he encounters any problems in his cultivation or sword Dao, he can come and look for us at any time. If this heavenly sword marquis is truly a genius, then he will definitely seize every opportunity in his cultivation. Now that I, the true principles master, and you, an invincible immortal saint who specializes in sword Dao, are here, he will definitely not miss this opportunity. He will definitely come and look for us. And during the process of seeking guidance, we will naturally be able to see his actual strength. Is that so? Iceberg understood. Iceberg, you have to work hard during this period. If the little guy comes to you, you must do your best to guide him. Baijiu instructed. Yes. Iceberg nodded solemnly. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. In a secret room in Jian Wushuang's residence. Success! Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with surprise as he looked at the figure standing calmly in front of him. This figure was the body of the rule master that he had brought out from the mystic realm. However, after being specifically refined, this principle's master looked exactly like him. Moreover, his body was exuding an extremely strange aura. Jian Wushuang sat upright and could clearly sense the current situation of the figure in front of him. Emperor's Life Avatar. This is my first Emperor's Life Avatar. Jian Wushuang was very happy, although the Emperor's Life Avatar did not improve his strength and could not fight for him in a fight. It was used to protect his life. The divine power contained in the body of the Emperor's Life Avatar was on the same level as Jian Wushuang's own divine power, and it was equally vast. One must know that Jian Wushuang's divine power was extremely vast, and it could be said to be a divine power sea. Other rank 1 true saints would need a lot of divine power to regenerate their divine bodies if their divine bodies collapsed. Under normal circumstances, a rank 1 true saint's divine power could only regenerate his divine body 3 or 4 times at most. However, Jian Wushuang's divine power was vast and boundless, and it could regenerate his divine body again and again. Jian Wushuang conservatively estimated that the divine power in his body could allow him to recombine his divine body at least 100 times. Such vast divine power was already ridiculous, but now Jian Wushuang had an Emperor's Life Avatar, which could bear all of his divine power. This meant that his divine power had doubled again. He could only replenish his divine body hundreds of times, but now he could regenerate it 200 times. What kind of concept was this? For example, if an ordinary rank 1 true saint was corroded by the Cthulhu's venom, he would die without even using half a drop. However, if the Cthulhu's venom was corroded into Jian Wushuang's body, it would take at least 100 drops of Cthulhu's venom to completely corrode his divine power, and that was only if Jian Wushuang was an ordinary first-rank true saint. In fact, Jian Wushuang's divine power was extremely pure. In terms of pure purity, it was higher than many third-rank true saints, or even peak third-rank true saints. Most importantly, he was a perfect chaotic creature unique to the divine beginning world. He was born with an indestructible and poison-proof physique. The Cthulhu venom and the Devil Star venom were absolutely the nemesis of the immortal saint. But these venoms had no effect on Jian Wushuang. His physique was completely immune to these venoms. With the venom immune and Jian Wushuang's abundant divine power, it was too difficult to kill him. In the secret chamber, Jian Wushuang moved his mind, and the Emperor's life avatar in front of him immediately began to shrink. Like an ordinary treasure, it directly merged into his body. The Emperor's life avatar has been created, and now Jian Wushuang flicked his hand and took out the second volume of the Gold-Splitting Secret Manual. The second volume of the Gold-Splitting Secret Manual contained the complete anatomy of the third stage of the space-time principles, which was very helpful to Jian Wushuang. In 80 years, I will go to the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. According to Elder Mo Shan, the heaven-cleaving mystic realm is a great opportunity or even a land of fortune. It's a rare opportunity, and I can't miss it. Before I enter, I have to find a way to make my strength stronger and reach my current limit. Jian Wushuang thought to himself. He wanted to improve himself as soon as possible. When he reached the heaven-cleaving mystic realm, he did not need to spend time on these areas where he could meditate or improve. Let's begin. Jian Wushuang immediately closed his eyes and began to meditate. Of course, he would not blindly meditate. After all, there was a principles master in the Divine Firmament Sect, and an immortal saint who had reached the invincible level in sword principle. With such two experts in front of him, it was impossible for Jian Wushuang not to seize the opportunity. Therefore, if he encountered any problems in cultivation or meditation, he would solve them himself. If he could not solve them, he would go to Baixiao and Iceberg for guidance. With their guidance, he would improve faster. Chapter 3075. Peak rank 4 time passed quickly. In a flash, Jian Wushuang had stayed in the Young Divine Sect for 30 years. In the manor, Baixiao and Iceberg were sitting together, drinking tea. Iceberg, how many times has Heavenly Sword Marquis looked for you in the past 30 years? Baixiao asked. 3 times, Iceberg replied. Only 3 times? Baixiao raised his eyebrows. That shouldn't be the case. With your knowledge and cultivation of Sword Tao, it should be more than enough for you to guide Heavenly Sword Marquis. If it were any other genius of Sword Tao with your painstaking guidance, they would definitely come to you frequently. In the past 30 years, it would be normal for them to come to you for guidance 100 times, but he only came to you 3 times? Sir, Heavenly Sword Marquis is very arrogant. In terms of Sword Tao, if it's an ordinary question that he can't understand in a short period of time, he will first try to study it himself and comprehend it in various ways. If he really can't comprehend it in a short period of time, he will come to me for guidance. Iceberg said, Is that so? Baixiao nodded slightly. This little fellow doesn't want to rely too much on the guidance of others. That will cause him to become lazy. Only when it's truly important and crucial will he come to ask me. That's right. Furthermore, he came to look for me 3 times. The first time was during the 2nd year that we stayed in the Young Divine Sect. The 2nd time was during the 5th year, and the 3rd time was during the 10th year. However, from the 10th year until now, a full 20 years have passed, and he still hasn't come to look for me. Iceberg said, Then, did you see anything from your 3-pointers? Baixiao asked. Well, Iceberg frowned. A little, but not much. What do you mean? Baixiao looked over. After 3-pointers, I can be sure that the Heavenly Sword Marquis understanding of sword principle and swordsmanship is indeed much better than what he showed us back then. Iceberg's voice was heavy. Take swordsmanship as an example. When we fought before, he only displayed one sword style. That sword style was called the instant of life and death. After this sword style was displayed, he stopped. At that time, He said that this sword style was the only one that he could show off. However, after 3 times of guidance, I discovered that he had created at least 2 other sword styles that were not inferior to Instant of Life and Death. Moreover, those 2 sword styles each had their own characteristics and were also very amazing. Oh, Baijiu's expression changed. It seems that my guess is correct. This little guy is indeed hiding his skills and talent. What else? What else did you come up with? Baijiu continued to ask. Nothing else. Iceberg shook his head. That heavenly sword marquis is very cautious. He came to me for guidance only because of some problems in swordsmanship and swordsmanship. However, he only gave me guidance 3 times. Moreover, he has been hiding his skills all this time, so I didn't see too much of him. Is that so? Baijiu's expression changed slightly. Now he comes to you for advice less and less. If you want to see his real strength through his advice, I'm afraid it's impossible. I have to think of another way. Another way? Iceberg looked over. In a real battle or a fight is enough to see a lot of things. Baijiu smiled, and then ordered, Iceberg, go and call your disciple over. Yes. Iceberg nodded. In the courtyard where Jian Wushuang lived, Jian Wushuang stood alone, holding the Blood Mountain sword in his hand. He closed his eyes, his breath was steady, and there was no movement at all. At this moment, a breeze came, but Jian Wushuang suddenly opened his eyes. Instantly, 2 electric lights shot out from his eyes. The Blood Mountain sword in his hand moved at the same time. Whoosh! The sword swept across, and a scarlet sword shadow burst out. The sword shadow was like the setting sun, the red light illuminating the world. But the setting sun was obviously incomplete. Wushuang Sword Manual. Kanyang. Buzz. The sword light swept across the void in front of him, instantly creating a large area of spatial ripples, which were all red in color. However, suddenly, rumble! An endless killing power swept up. A huge space-time storm formed in an instant and began to crazily annihilate everything in the void. In just an instant, everything in the void in front of Jian Wushuang was annihilated without leaving a trace. Jian Wushuang had spent a lot of time comprehending and studying each of the 7 sword techniques in the Wushuang Sword Manual. Many of the sword techniques were the inspirations he had found from studying countless profound and unfathomable sword techniques in the Bodhi world. For example, there were 9 sword techniques in the 9th heaven of the illusory sword, which seemed to be performed at the same time. Each move was faster and stronger than the last. It was a wonderful sword technique that used speed to suppress the opponent. As for the sword technique of Kanyang, it was the result of Jian Wushuang's perfect combination of his swordsmanship and the comprehension of the space-time principles. He had reached the 3rd stage of the comprehension of space-time principles. At this stage, he had mastered space-time annihilation. The afterimage was a perfect combination of swordsmanship and space-time annihilation, complementing each other. The swordsmanship was powerful, while the space-time annihilation was hidden in the swordsmanship. It could burst out a terrifying power in a short period of time and deal a devastating blow to the opponent. I almost didn't use my own divine power in this sword attack. I only relied on swordsmanship and space-time principles, but it still caused such a big commotion. Jian Wushuang looked at the space in front of him that had been completely annihilated. His eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. He did not use his divine power. Once his divine power was fully unleashed, his move could definitely destroy the world. Judging from the power of my swordsmanship, the first move of the setting sun should have reached the peak of the 4th rank by now, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. He had stayed in the Young Divine Sect for 30 years. During these 30 years, he had been focusing on studying the gold-splitting secret manual. After 30 years of studying it, he had achieved remarkable results. Not only had his comprehension of space-time principles improved greatly, but his swordsmanship had also improved greatly. In addition, his swordsmanship had also improved greatly. There were 7 sword techniques in the Wushuang sword manual, including Xiong, Star Dream, Kenyang, Emperor's Blood Kill, Life and Death Instant, Ninth Heaven of Illusionary Sword, and finally Blood Azura. Previously, these 7 sword techniques had just reached the level of a 4th level absolute art. However, in the past 30 years, all 7 sword techniques had made breakthroughs. Now, these 7 sword techniques had reached the level of a peak 4th level absolute art, and their power had improved a lot. This meant that his own strength had also improved a lot. In just 30 years, I have made such great progress, not only because of the gold-splitting secret manual, but also because of the 3-pointers from Sword Saint Iceberg. He has helped me a lot, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. At this moment, Mr. Heavenly Marquis, Chapter 3076, The Genius Feast, Mr. Heavenly Marquis. As the voice rang out, 5 figures flew over from the void in front of Jian Wushuang and landed in front of him. These 5 people were Baixiao and the other 3 genius disciples from the Tao Palace. The other Jiu Luo was also among them. Brother Heavenly Marquis, Jiu Luo also called out. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. Mr. Heavenly Marquis, we are going to participate in the Genius Feast of the First Heaven. Do you want to join us? Baixiao said. Genius Feast? What Genius Feast? Jian Wushuang asked. This Genius Feast is jointly organized by the 3 pavilions, the 9 courtyards, and the 12 divine sections. It's held once every 5,000 years. Every time it's held, countless experts in the first heaven who have reached the level of a first-level true saint will flock to it. They will compete in the feast and make a name for themselves, Baixiao said. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He had experienced too many things in his 2 lives. He had experienced such a genius feast many times, and he had even participated in it several times. Therefore, a genius feast like this one held in the first heaven could not make him excited. You go, I won't go, Jian Wushuang said. Mr. Heavenly Marquis, Baixiao said immediately, the genius feast of the first heaven is very large-scale. There are countless geniuses coming. Those who get a good ranking in the genius competition will not only receive a lot of rewards, but most importantly, many top forces in the divine beginning world will also pay attention to this genius feast. For example, the Heaven Cleaving Alliance, the divine ancestor Taoist sect, and even the mysterious Temporal Temple, as well as some sects from the 2nd and 3rd heaven. This is a great opportunity to make a name for yourself in the divine beginning world. Reward. Reward? Famous in the divine beginning world. Jian Wushuang smiled. Reward? A genius feast attended by a first-level true saint could only reward him with some sacred elixirs or powerful holy treasures. He did not lack holy elixirs. He still had 9 universe crystals. Any one of them could be exchanged for a huge amount of sacred elixirs, which was enough for him to use for a long time. As for holy treasures, he did not need them anymore. He had gotten 4 opportunities in Blood North's Heaven Secret region, and Blood North had given him 2 special treasures. One was an ice and fire dragon ruler, and the other was a ruler seal. The former was a domain-type true treasure, and the latter was a treasure that was worth as much as a true treasure. Any of these 2 treasures could be exchanged for countless holy treasures, not to mention the map of mountains and rivers. As for being famous in the divine beginning world, first of all, he did not care about such fame. Secondly, he was targeted by the power of the will of heaven. The 3 masters of the saint realm were looking for him at all times. How could he go to the genius feast and make a name for himself? He was courting death. You guys go. Jian Wushuang waved his hand again. He was really not interested. Mr. Heavenly Marquis. Baixiao's expression changed slightly. At this time, Zhu Luo said, Brother Heavenly Marquis, this genius feast is indeed a rare event. There are many geniuses and experts who will attend it. I will also attend it. You just came from the endless territories and have not fully adapted to the environment of the third heaven. If you attend the genius feast at this time, you can really experience the level of geniuses in the third heaven. Even if you don't want to participate, it's good to see it. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He glanced at Zhu Luo and finally nodded after a long while. You're right. Although I'm not interested in this genius feast, it's good to see it. In that case, let's go. Jian Wushuang also felt that he had been in the first heaven for 30 years, and he could not keep cultivating. Now that he had the opportunity to broaden his knowledge, it was a good choice to go and have a look. Let's set off immediately. Zhu Luo nodded. Baixiao and the others were also quite happy. Soon, they set off directly. In the first heaven, there was a natural secret realm called the Jade Dragon Mystic Realm. The genius feast was in the Jade Dragon Mystic Realm. Jian Wushuang and the others had already arrived at the Jade Dragon Mystic Realm. However, when they arrived at the Mystic Realm, they saw countless people. So many people. Jian Wushuang looked at the countless people in front of him. This is too many, Zhu Luo exclaimed. The genius banquet in the first heaven is held only once every 5,000 years. It's a large-scale event. For many genius experts, this is a chance to make a name for themselves. Most importantly, this banquet will attract the attention of many sects and forces. In the past, many outstanding geniuses would proudly join those sects and forces. For example, several geniuses from the previous year joined the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces and Dao Palace. Therefore, whether it's to become famous or to join the top forces, many rank 1 true saints from certain forces will come to participate in this feast. Conservatively speaking, there should be at least tens of thousands of rank 1 true saints participating in this genius feast, Baixiao said. Tens of thousands of people. Even though Jian Wushuang was shocked, he soon understood. A rank 1 true saint was definitely a top expert in the endless territories. In some small territories, he could even be considered a king, but in the third heaven, he seemed ordinary. There were countless experts in the divine beginning world, so it was not a big deal for tens of thousands of rank 1 true saints to participate in this genius feast. Mr. Heavenly Marquis, since you're already here, why don't you go and register like Junior Brother Zhu Luo? Baixiao said. Jian Wushuang pondered for a moment and then nodded. Okay. Baixiao was immediately delighted. When he saw that Jian Wushuang was not interested in the genius feast, he thought that Jian Wushuang would not participate in it. However, he still casually mentioned it. He did not expect Jian Wushuang to agree to it now. It's good that he agreed. Only if he agrees to participate in the genius feast will the plan prepared by Master not be in vain. Baixiao was pleasantly surprised. Jian Wushuang and Zhu Luo had already gone to the registration place. The registration place was in front of a towering black tower. The black tower was pitch black, 10 stories high, and exuded an ancient and mysterious aura. At this moment, a large number of people were gathered in front of the tower. Many rank 1 true saints who were going to participate in the genius feast were lining up there. Jian Wushuang and Zhu Luo followed behind them. The process of the line was very fast. In a moment, it was their turn. Chapter 3077, 10-Star Pagoda. The genius feast is a gathering of many top geniuses in the first heaven, but not all first-level true saints can participate in it. Before participating in the genius feast, you have to go through a round of assessment, which is the 10-star pagoda behind me. There are 10 levels in the 10-star pagoda, and each level is more difficult than the last. To participate in the Genius Feast, you have to pass the 5th level at the very least, a person in charge of the registration office said. Zhu Luo, you go ahead first, Jian Wushuang said. Okay. Zhu Luo nodded and went straight into the pitch-black tower. Zhu Luo did not stay in the 10-star pagoda for long. During this time, the 1st to the 5th level of the tower soon emitted a burst of dazzling light. It meant that Zhu Luo had passed the 5th level, and soon the 6th floor also burst out with a bright light. The 6th floor, countless first-ranked true saints raised their heads to look at the pitch-black pagoda. The 10-star pagoda was extremely difficult. Ordinary first-ranked true saints would find it extremely difficult to pass the 5th floor. As for passing the 6th floor, one had to be an extremely powerful first-ranked true saint. There were not many experts who had signed up to participate in this genius banquet. At this moment, the 7th level of the Black Tower suddenly emitted a dazzling light. In an instant, the Jade Dragon mystic realm burst into an uproar. The 7th level, that person just now actually passed the 7th level. So powerful. It has been 2 months since the start of this genius banquet. Although many people have passed the 5th or 6th level of the 10-star pagoda, there are still pitifully few people who have passed the 7th level. In total, there are probably only a few dozen people. If he can pass the 7th level of the 10-star pagoda, he will definitely make it to the end of the Genius Feast. A lot of whispers sounded. When Zhu Luo walked out of the 10-star pagoda, a lot of people looked at him with respect and envy. To be able to pass the 7th level of the 10-star pagoda, he was undoubtedly at the top of this Genius Feast. Zhu Luo, how do you feel? Jian Wushuang glanced at Zhu Luo. I'm fine. The first 6 levels are easy for me, but the 7th level gives me a certain amount of pressure. As for the 8th level, the opponents I met there are much stronger than me. I can't pass it at all, Zhu Luo said directly. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. Zhu Luo was a rank 1 true saint, but his battle strength was comparable to a rank 2 true saint. In terms of talent, he was extremely high. It was normal for him to be able to pass the 7th level of the 10-star pagoda. Brother Heavenly Marquis, it's your turn. I can pass the 7th level. With your strength, it's easy for you to pass the 8th level. It shouldn't be a problem for you to pass the 9th or even the 10th level, Zhu Luo said. 9th level, 10th level. Jian Wushuang smiled. After a while, he entered the 10-star pagoda. Once he entered the 10-star pagoda, Jian Wushuang came to an independent space. A towering figure stood in front of him. This was the opponent he was going to face on the 1st level of the 10-star pagoda. Challenger, defeat me, and you can go to the next level, the towering figure said coldly. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly and soon made his move. In the 10-star pagoda, Zhu Luo and many other geniuses were waiting quietly. Many people's eyes were fixed on the 10-star pagoda. A moment after Jian Wushuang entered the 10-star pagoda, the 1st floor burst out with a dazzling light. Then the 2nd floor, the 3rd floor, the 4th floor, all the way to the 6th floor. All of them took only a short time to pass through. Then it was the 7th floor. Jian Wushuang seemed to have stopped for a while at the 7th floor. The light on the 7th floor only lit up after a long time. After passing the 7th floor, Jian Wushuang walked out of the 10-star pagoda. The 7th floor again. These 2 people have passed the 7th floor, and it's obvious that they know each other. Where did these 2 geniuses come from? Are they from the same sect? The surrounding people were full of curiosity. Jian Wushuang returned to Zhu Luo. "Brother Heavenly Marquis, you didn't try hard, right? Otherwise, with your strength, how could you only pass the 7th level?" Zhu Luo looked at Jian Wushuang with a strange look. "It's just a test at the registration office. It's enough to pass. There's no need to show off too much," Jian Wushuang said. Zhu Luo shrugged and said nothing more. In the void, not far away, Baixiao and the 3 disciples from the Dao Palace saw everything. "The Heavenly Sword Marquis didn't use his full strength at all," the red-haired man said. "Yes." Baixiao nodded. "If the 4 of us were to challenge the 10-star Pagoda, any one of us would be able to pass the 8th level, at the very least. If we're lucky, we might even be able to make it to the 9th level. The Heavenly Sword Marquis sword techniques are clearly above mine. Furthermore, according to what Master said, he has always been concealing his skills and strength. Therefore, if he were to really use his full strength, it wouldn't be a problem for him to make it to the 9th level." "But he only passed the 7th level," said the beautiful woman in golden armor. "There's no rush. Now that he has participated in the Genius Feast, he will definitely make a move." "Well, watch carefully," Baixiao said. After passing the registration, Jian Wushuang and Zhou Luo waited in the Jade Dragon Mystic Realm for the start of the Genius Feast. They waited for another month. It took them 3 months to register. During these 3 months, many rank 1 true saints passed the test of the 10-star Pagoda and participated in the Genius Feast. There were more than 20,000 people. Among these 20,000 rank 1 true saints, there were many talented geniuses. Soon, the Genius Feast officially began. The first round, the free-for-all. Every 100 people were grouped together to fight in the free-for-all. In the free-for-all, these true saints could use any method to fight. And during the fighting process, once their divine bodies collapsed, they would be considered eliminated until there were only 10 people left in this 100 people. In other words, this free-for-all did not require one's strength to be very strong. One only needed to be able to survive in this free-for-all. In addition, there were rules in the Genius Feast. No one was allowed to use poison, which could restrain the immortal body. After all, this was just a Genius Feast. It was a contest between geniuses, but it was not a real battlefield. It was not a real life-and-death battle. The chaotic battle began one after another. Although Jian Wushuang and Zhou Luo signed up at the same time, they were not assigned to the same chaotic battle. Chapter 3078, Speed and Movement Skills underscore in the Jade Dragon Mystic Realm, a series of chaotic battles were going on. In one of the battlefields, a total of 100 rank 1 true saints were standing there, and Jian Wushuang was among them. Baixiao and the others were standing in the void, near Jian Wushuang's battlefield. Just watch. Before, we couldn't see the scene inside the 10-star Pagoda, but now, this is a real battle. Even if there is no life-and-death battle, we can still see a lot of things. Baixiao said, "Yes, when Heavenly Sword Marquis fought with you, he defeated you with only 1 sword attack. This only means that his swordsmanship is very good, but it doesn't mean anything else. After all, you agreed that you would only use the divine power of an ordinary rank 1 true saint to compete in swordsmanship. But now the Genius Feast depends entirely on strength. He can use any means. His swordsmanship is stronger than yours, but no one knows the level of his overall combat strength," the red-haired man said. They were all very expectant of Jian Wushuang's strength. They were not the only ones who were curious. It was also a task assigned by the top 100 experts and Iceberg. "It's starting!" Baixiao suddenly shouted in a low voice. On the battlefield, 100 true saints were fighting head-on. A large number of tyrannical auras were mixed together. These true saints had already unleashed all of their strength. The entire battlefield was in chaos. However, Jian Wushuang did not move on this chaotic battlefield. He just stood there indifferently. Even the Blood Mountain sword did not appear in his hand. It was as if the chaotic battle around him had nothing to do with him. Kill! A fierce shout suddenly came from the void beside him. A strong man with golden hair, who looked like a brown bear, stared at Jian Wushuang with fierce eyes and attacked him directly. Boom! A huge iron hammer, with the power of thunder, directly hit Jian Wushuang's body. However, the iron hammer directly passed through Jian Wushuang's body, but it did not touch anything. What? The blond man was shocked and immediately turned to look around, only to find that Jian Wushuang had already appeared in the void beside him. His expression was still as cold as ever, and he had no intention of attacking. However, even if he did not attack, the blond man was still frightened. He's too fast. This kid is too fast. If he attacked, just now, I wouldn't have time to react. Such a terrifying speed could easily crush me. I'd better find another opponent. The blond man was also smart. He knew that Jian Wushuang was not to be trifled with, so he immediately went to fight with other first-rank true saints. On the battlefield, everyone was engaged in a fierce battle, but Jian Wushuang was indifferent, although there were people watching him and occasionally coming to kill him. He easily avoided them and let them. There was no chance to fight him directly. He walked casually on the battlefield, but no one could touch the corner of his clothes. This speed is so fast. It is indeed a little too fast. Not only is it fast, but the most important thing is that its movement is strange. With such speed and movement, there is no need for him to fight on the battlefield. He just needs to wait until the battle is over, and there are only 10 people left. Baixiao and the others, who had been watching Jian Wushuang from the side, could not help exclaiming when they saw the scene on the battlefield. They had wanted to see Jian Wushuang's true strength through his fight in the chaotic battle, but Jian Wushuang had never intended to fight. Indeed, more than half of the rank 1 true saints who had lost their divine bodies had been eliminated in the chaotic battle since the beginning, but no one had ever fought with Jian Wushuang. The rank 1 true saints on the battlefield seemed to have seen Jian Wushuang's speed and movement skills, so no one bothered him anymore. Everyone knew that with such terrifying speed and movement skills, Jian Wushuang could definitely survive until the end. There was no doubt about that. It seems impossible to see his actual strength from the first round of the battle. Baixiao sighed. We can only look forward to the next round. If we can't, well, wait until the third and final round. It's a one-on-one fight. We can only win if we defeat the opponent's divine body. At that time, he'll have to fight. Just wait. Baixiao and the others were very patient. Since Jian Wushuang had already participated in the Genius Feast, there were 3 rounds of it. Sooner or later, Jian Wushuang would have to fight. They just had to wait. On the battlefield, the chaotic battle had come to an end. Finally, any rank 1 true saint's divine body collapsed under the joint attack of 2 people. The chaotic battle was finally over. Of course, only 10 people were left, including Jian Wushuang. He stood in the void of the battlefield with his hands behind his back, looking calm and collected. The other 9 people were not as carefree as him. The 9 people were left after a fierce battle. The battle was very fierce, so they all looked a little embarrassed. After the first round of the Genius Feast, Jian Wushuang passed easily. As for Zhu Luo, his strength was among the best among the many rank 1 true saints who participated in the Genius Feast. In the first round of the chaotic battle, although he encountered some troubles, he still relied on his tyrannical strength to go to the end and passed the first round. The second round, the Road of Reincarnation. The Road of Reincarnation was 33,000 miles containing layers of tests and was extremely difficult. Originally, there were more than 20,000 rank 1 true saints who participated in the Genius Feast, but after the elimination of the first round of the chaotic battle, there were only more than 2,000 people left. These 2,000 people challenged the path of reincarnation together. The deadline was 10 days. After 10 days, the 100 people at the front could enter the third round. In 10 days, the 2,000 rank 1 true saints that stood out from the first round of chaotic battles struggled on the path of reincarnation. Each of them tried their best to walk further, but the path of reincarnation was indeed extremely difficult. After 10 days, the person who walked at the front and the farthest had only covered 25,000 miles. There were still 8,000 miles to go. Most of the others were between 15,000 and 20,000 miles. There were not many people who were between 20,000 and 25,000 miles. Among Jian Wushuang and Jiu Luo had covered 21,000 miles with great difficulty. He was ranked 81st among all the people. As for Jian Wushuang, he had barely covered 21,000 miles and was ranked 76th. Naturally, the two entered the third round smoothly. Chapter 3079. Duan Yu, this heavenly sword marquis is really well hidden. In the first round of the chaotic battle, he easily passed by relying on his speed and movement techniques. In the second round of the path of reincarnation, he also kept his strength. He only walked 21,000 kilometers before he stopped. The red-haired man said in a low voice, "It's fine. Let's wait for the third round. The third round is the most important. In addition, senior brother Xiong Tao has already passed the second round, and his ranking is close to his. If nothing goes wrong, the two of them will soon face each other in the third round. Once he faces senior brother Xiong Tao, it will be impossible for him to hold back," Baixiao said. When they heard senior brother Xiong Tao's words, the eyes of the red-haired man, the beautiful woman in golden armor, and the black-robed young man lit up. They were all rank 1 true saints from the Dao Palace, but they were only average among the rank 1 true saints in the Dao Palace. And Xiong Tao was widely recognized as the number 1 rank 1 true saint in the Dao Palace. This time, Xiong Tao had received a message from the top 100 talents and specially came to participate in the Genius Feast. Of course, he also hid his identity, so he hoped that he could have a fair fight with Jian Wushuang. He wanted to fight with Jian Wushuang for a legitimate reason. Once Xiong Tao fought with Jian Wushuang, it would be impossible for Jian Wushuang to hold back. Let's see. Baixiao and the other 3 were looking forward to it. The third round of the Genius Feast was a one-on-one round battle. The 100 geniuses who reached the third round would draw lots to decide the order of the battle. The first opponent Jian Wushuang drew was called Duan Yu. Duan Yu. Jian Wushuang's expression changed. He knew this name because Duan Yu had caused quite a commotion in the second round of the Samsara Road. In the previous round of the Samsara Road, the only person who had made it to 25,000 miles was Duan Yu. He was ranked first in the second round of the Genius Feast. The second round of the Genius Feast depends on the overall strength of one person. Since Duan Yu is ranked first, it's not surprising that he should be the strongest in this Genius Feast. Jian Wushuang muttered to himself, "I didn't expect that the opponent I met in the third round would be the strongest in this Genius Feast. My luck is really good." Jian Wushuang smiled faintly, but he did not care at all. In the void beside him, Heavenly Sword Marquis' luck is really not good. His first opponent is Duan Yu. The red-haired man laughed loudly. "I know Duan Yu. He comes from the Heavenly Cloud Pavilion among the 3 pavilions. He is the number 1 genius of the Heavenly Cloud Pavilion. Although he is only a rank 1 true saint, it is said that his battle strength is much stronger than ordinary rank 3 true saints. In terms of strength, he is stronger than us," Baixiao said. Judging from the fact that he just broke through the reincarnation path, Duan Yu's strength is the strongest in this year's Genius Feast, except for senior brother Xiong Tao. It seems that senior brother Xiong Tao may not have to fight personally. Duan Yu alone can test the strength of Heavenly Sword Marquis, the black-robed young man said with a smile. The four of them focused their attention on the battlefield at the front. Jian Wushuang and Duan Yu had already appeared on the battlefield. After seeing Duan Yu, the surrounding spectators looked at Jian Wushuang with pity. This guy is really unlucky. His first opponent is Duan Yu. Duan Yu of the Heavenly Cloud Pavilion is undoubtedly the strongest in this year's Genius Feast. Whoever meets him will be a tragedy. Let's see how long he can last in Duan Yu's hands. A large number of discussions were heard throughout the mystic realm without any concealment. Almost no one thought highly of Jian Wushuang. If there was only one person who thought highly of Jian Wushuang, it would be Jiu Luo. Brother Heavenly Marquis, come on, kill him. Jiu Luo roared, causing many people around him to roll their eyes. On the battlefield, Jian Wushuang and Duan Yu were facing each other from a distance. Your first opponent in the third round is me. You are really unlucky. Duan Yu, a half-moon-looking young man in a long robe, crossed his arms and stared at Jian Wushuang with interest. Maybe. Jian Wushuang just smiled faintly. I'll give you a chance. Make your move. Duan Yu hooked his finger at Jian Wushuang. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded. The blood mountain sword appeared in his hand, and then he moved, as if he had teleported. Jian Wushuang appeared in front of Duan Yu, and the blood mountain sword in his hand had been slashed out. Well, this speed, Duan Yu was slightly surprised, but a purple saber immediately appeared in his hand. The purple saber drew a purple shadow in the void and collided with Jian Wushuang's blood mountain sword. Clang! With a sound of collision, a large amount of divine power crazily spread out in the surroundings. Duan Yu was originally calm, but when the weapons of both sides collided, his face suddenly sank and his body suddenly trembled. He raised his head in shock. However, Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. The blood mountain sword in his hand became illusory, and he casually waved it. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Jian Wushuang waved it 9 times in a row and also displayed a total of 9 sword moves. Although he had displayed 9 sword moves at once, it gave people the feeling that he had only displayed 1 sword move. It was the 9th heaven of the illusory sword. The 9 sword shadows were all extremely hazy. They overlapped and gathered together. The moment they were unleashed, Duan Yu's expression changed drastically. Boom! A vast aura suddenly swept out from Duan Yu's body, and a large amount of purple divine thunder swept out. In an instant, the entire battlefield fell into a purple thunder hell. The thunder hell completely covered Jian Wushuang and Duan Yu, so that the spectators outside could not see what was going on inside. Only the crisp sound of metal clashing could be heard from the thunder hell, and the sound was very fast and dense. In fact, the battle between the two in the thunder hell was indeed very fierce. Jian Wushuang's 9th heaven of illusionary sword was like a single move, overlapping with each other. It was so fast that Duan Yu had to brandish his saber crazily to block Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship. Block it! Block it! Duan Yu roared in his heart. Jian Wushuang's continuous 9 moves of swordsmanship increased the pressure on him. But suddenly, boom! Thunder hell completely dispersed, and a large amount of purple divine thunder scattered in all directions. Once his body was blown away, he also retreated. The one who was blown away was Jian Wushuang. He wiped the corner of his clothes and then raised his left hand. I admit defeat. Chapter 3080. Ended underscore. What's going on? What happened just now? Heavenly Sword Marquis admitted defeat. Duan Yu won. As expected, the winner is still Duan Yu. The battle just now was so intense. I thought Duan Yu would lose. How is that possible? Duan Yu was the strongest in this genius banquet, and Heavenly Sword Marquis was only ranked 76th when he challenged the path of reincarnation. How could he be a match for Duan Yu? However, for him to be able to fight Duan Yu to this extent, he's not bad at all. The surrounding spectators were all discussing. They had just seen the huge thunder hell and heard the sounds of battle, but they did not know what was going on inside. Now that Jian Wushuang had admitted defeat, they naturally thought that Duan Yu had defeated Jian Wushuang head-on. However, what they did not know was that Duan Yu's face was extremely ugly. He stared at Jian Wushuang, who was walking out of the arena and could not calm down for a long time. At first, he did not take Jian Wushuang seriously, but in the actual fight, Jian Wushuang's strength completely shocked him. Especially in Thunder Hell, when Jian Wushuang used the ninth heaven of illusory sword, his swordsmanship was unbelievably fast. Even if he tried his best, he was completely suppressed. The 9 sword shadows pressed down crazily. He could only withstand 7 sword strikes. He could not withstand the 8th sword at all. However, at this critical moment, Jian Wushuang suddenly stopped and retreated. What happened next was what everyone saw. Jian Wushuang admitted defeat. What happened? Duan Yu's eyes narrowed. Could it be that his swordsmanship was not perfect, and he could only perform the 7th strike? No. Duan Yu immediately shook his head. I had a very clear feeling just now. I don't know if he could perform the 9th strike, but he did perform the 8th strike. It was about to hit my divine body, but he took it back at the critical moment. He lost on purpose. On purpose. Duan Yu clenched his fists at the thought of this. He wanted to ask Jian Wushuang to stop, but Jian Wushuang had already left the battlefield. This made him feel extremely aggrieved, but he had nowhere to vent it. This guy, Duan Yu took a deep look at Jian Wushuang and walked down after a long while. In fact, Jian Wushuang did lose on purpose. He lost on purpose because he thought it was meaningless to defeat Duan Yu. Too weak. Duan Yu is already recognized as the number 1 in this genius feast, but his strength is not even comparable to the 3 original palace geniuses I met in the Whitebone region. This genius feast is really meaningless, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. In fact, the level of geniuses in this genius feast was not low. After all, this was the largest genius feast in the first heaven. There were many geniuses at the level of a rank 1 true saint, including some real geniuses. However, there was still a gap between geniuses and true geniuses. To put it bluntly, it could not be blamed that these geniuses were too weak. It should be said that Jian Wushuang was too strong and too abnormal. When he was in the endless territory, he was able to fight against a rank 4 true saint with the battle strength of a rank 1 true saint. Later, when he went to the Blood North secret area, he obtained a great fortune and great opportunity. His strength soared again. Now, his battle strength had reached an extremely shocking level. Under such circumstances, the other geniuses naturally could not compare to him. In the void, not far away, Baixiao and the other 3 gathered together. At this moment, their expressions were also somewhat unsightly. This Heavenly Sword Marquis actually lost. The red-haired man asked, he lost on purpose. Although Duan Yu is powerful, he is definitely not his match. He just doesn't want to reveal his strength, so he simply admitted defeat. Baixiao's voice was low and deep. This is troublesome. We specially invited Senior Brother Xiong Tao to participate in this genius banquet, hoping that Senior Brother Xiong Tao would be able to meet him at this banquet and then fight him one-on-one. Who would have thought that this heavenly sword marquis wouldn't even make a move at this genius banquet? And he directly admitted defeat. The black-robed youth said, "There's no other way. Since we can't meet him at the genius banquet, we can only let senior brother Xiong Tao take the initiative to challenge him." Baixiao said, "Take the initiative to challenge him?" Senior brother Xiong Tao was more arrogant than anyone else. He agreed to participate in the genius banquet this time because he gave face to the Lord of the 100 Talents. Why would he take the initiative to challenge a genius of the same level? It's almost impossible. Moreover, even if he were willing, the heavenly sword marquis might not agree, said the beautiful woman in golden armor. How would we know if we don't try? Baixiao shrugged. He had no choice. Xiong Tao was the #1 first-level true saint in the Dao Palace. He was a true heaven's favored son. He was proud in his heart and had high standards. There were often geniuses in the Dao Palace who wanted to challenge Xiong Tao, but Xiong Tao could not be bothered with them because ordinary geniuses were not qualified for him to fight. Such a person wanted him to take the initiative to challenge a true saint of the first rank of the same rank. Of course it was difficult, unless that person's strength was really very good and could make Xiong Tao want to fight. But Jian Wushuang did not show his true strength. How could Xiong Tao be interested? The third round of one-on-one matches in the Genius Feast was held at the same time. While Jian Wushuang and Duan Yu were fighting on another battlefield, a brown-haired man, who was nearly 3 meters tall, stood with his arms crossed. Although there was someone in front of him, the brown-haired man's eyes did not stop on his opponent, but on the battlefield between Jian Wushuang and Duan Yu. When he saw Jian Wushuang admit defeat, the brown-haired man's eyes narrowed slightly. Since he has admitted defeat, there is no need for me to continue participating in this genius feast. The brown-haired man raised his hand and said, "I admit defeat." His voice spread and caused a commotion in the surrounding void. This was because the brown-haired man had not fought with his opponent at all. Moreover, his opponent was not ranked high in the second round of the Samsara Road. He was ranked below 90th. Such a genius should be at the bottom in the third round of the Samsara battle. However, the brown-haired man directly admitted defeat. Of course, many people did not understand. However, the brown-haired man ignored the crowd and directly turned around and walked out of the battlefield. Jian Wushuang and Xiong Tao both admitted defeat voluntarily. Without them, the Genius Feast would naturally belong to Duan Yu. The final result was that Duan Yu won the first place in the Genius Feast and became famous in the third heaven. As for Jiu Luo, his strength was also considered to be at the bottom of the 100 geniuses in the third round. At the beginning of the third round, he met his first opponent and was eliminated. Chapter 3081. Duan Yes Visit _ After the Genius Feast ended, Jian Wushuang and the others left the Jade Dragon Mystic Realm. Jian Wushuang, Jiu Luo, and Baixiao were flying side by side in the vast void. Brother Heavenly Marquis, it shouldn't be difficult for you to defeat Duan Yu with your strength. Why did you deliberately lose to him in the end? Jiu Luo asked. He also saw that Jian Wushuang had deliberately lost to Duan Yu. There's no meaning in defeating him, Jian Wushuang said directly. Jiu Luo shrugged, but did not say anything. Baixiao and the others were secretly communicating with each other. I have already sent a message to Senior Brother Xiong Tao, but Senior Brother Xiong Tao hasn't replied to me. What should I do now? The red-haired man said, Who knows? I've already done as Master instructed. I don't care what the result is. Baixiao said. They were also helpless. They wanted to test Jian Wushuang's true strength, but unfortunately, they could not find any opportunity. At this moment, whoosh, 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 three figures suddenly rushed over from the distant void. Stop! A low shout suddenly echoed between the heaven and earth. Jian Wushuang and the others immediately stopped and turned to look. The leader of the three was a young man with a half-moon-like face. He was Duan Yu, who had won the first place in the Genius Feast and was famous in the third heaven. As for the other two, their auras were so strong that they had reached the level of a rank 4 true saint. They should be the two experts sent by the Heavenly Cloud Pavilion to follow Duan Yu and protect him. Duan Yu and the other two also stopped in front of Jian Wushuang and the others. Duan Yu's eyes were fixed on Jian Wushuang. "What's the matter?" Jian Wushuang asked. "Of course," Duan Yu said in a low voice. "Your name is Heavenly Sword Marquis, right? Let me ask you, when you fought with me, did you stop at the last moment?" "Yes." Jian Wushuang did not deny it. He fought with Duan Yu and stopped at the last moment. If Duan Yu did not see it, he would be extremely stupid. "Why?" Duan Yu asked coldly. "I will stop if I want to." "Why?" Jian Wushuang said. "Good, very good." Duan Yu clenched his teeth. "Heavenly Sword Marquis, although I won the first place in this year's Genius Feast, I always have a thorn in my heart. This thorn is you. That's why I specially came here. Let's fight again. This time, both of us should not hold back and use all of our strength. What do you think? You still want to fight?" Jian Wushuang looked at Duan Yu with a strange expression. "Do you think it's necessary?" "Of course. Although I know you stopped at the last moment, I wouldn't be satisfied if I didn't lose to you. Besides, I was a bit careless before. Otherwise, your swordsmanship might not be able to suppress me," Duan Yu said in a low voice. "Oh." Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and then smiled. "Well, since you're not satisfied, then you and I will fight again. Let's fight here. This time, it's your turn to fight first." Jian Wushuang flipped his hand and took out the Blood Mountain sword. "Okay," Duan Yu responded. Immediately, a surging aura rose from his body. At the same time, dense purple thunderbolts burst out, forming a thunder hell in the surrounding void. Seeing that Duan Yu and Jian Wushuang were going to fight again, Baixiao, Zhu Luo, and the others immediately retreated to the side. "Kill!" With a fierce shout, Duan Yu directly turned into a purple thunderbolt and shot out. Whoosh! A saber light suddenly slashed out, like a purple thunderbolt, and instantly cut through Jian Wushuang's divine body. However, the saber light did not touch Jian Wushuang's divine body at all. "What?" Duan Yu was shocked, but his pupils suddenly shrank. He was surprised to see Jian Wushuang appear beside him. And at the same time, Jian Wushuang also attacked. It was a cold and beautiful sword shadow that felt like a dream. The sword light was calm and indifferent. It swung out from Jian Wushuang's hand and then directly cut toward Duan Yu's arm. Wushuang Sword Manual, Star Dream. This sword was too fast. Duan Yu did not have time to react. The sword light had already swept over his right arm. A terrifying cutting power burst out, and his entire arm was chopped off in an instant. "You lost." Jian Wushuang's figure had already appeared behind Duan Yu, and his calm voice was transmitted over. Duan Yu, on the other hand, widened his eyes and looked stunned. Baixiao and the others in the void could not help but sigh when they saw this scene. "So powerful!" the red-haired man exclaimed. "Yes, it's very powerful. His sword, although its speed is not as fast as when he defeated me, the cutting power contained in it is too strong. Duan Yu is the #1 genius of the Heavenly Cloud Pavilion. His life-saving skills are very strong, and the armor he wears is of a very high level. However, his sword actually tore through the armor and cut off Duan Yu's arm." Baixiao also praised. "If he can cut off Duan Yu's arm, he can also cut off Duan Yu's head. Previously, I thought that Heavenly Sword Marquis swordsmanship was just a little better. If both sides did not hold back and fought with all their strength, I might be able to fight with him or even defeat him by relying on my divine power or secret skill. But now it seems that even if I go all out, I'm still no match for him. I might even be defeated by his sword. Duan Yu was completely stunned. He knew that Jian Wushuang had stopped at a critical moment, but he did not think that his strength was inferior to Jian Wushuang. After all, he had been careless and did not use all of his strength in the previous battle. Therefore, he was unwilling to give up, so he came to find Jian Wushuang in order to defeat him face to face. But who would have thought that the result would be like this? How could he be so strong? Duan Yu could not understand. He was already the first place in this year's Genius Feast. If nothing unexpected happened, he would definitely be able to join the heaven-cleaving 3 palaces or the Tao Palace. He was definitely one of the top geniuses in the divine beginning world. But now, he was already stunned by Jian Wushuang's sword, while Duan Yu was still in a daze. "Your swordsmanship is not bad." A deep voice suddenly sounded. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and found a 3-meter-tall, stocky, brown-haired man who had appeared in the void beside them. Senior Brother Xiong Tao. Seeing this person, Baixiao and the 3 geniuses from the Tao Palace were overjoyed. Jian Wushuang also glanced at this man and then smiled faintly. "Are you finally going to show up? You found me?" Xiong Tao stared at Jian Wushuang. "Of course." Jian Wushuang nodded. Chapter 3082. Xiong Tao after coming out of the Jade Dragon Mystic Realm. Jian Wushuang had already noticed that there was someone following behind him. However, this person had not shown up, so Jian Wushuang did not alarm him. And now, this person, Xiong Tao, had finally shown up. "Baixiao, and the others call you Senior Brother. Does that mean that you are also from the Tao Palace?" Jian Wushuang looked at Xiong Tao. "Yes." Xiong Tao nodded. "Mr. Heaven Marquis." Baixiao immediately said, "Senior Brother Xiong Tao is the strongest rank 1 true saint in our Tao Palace. Even in the entire Tao Palace, his talent is one of the best." "Oh." Jian Wushuang's expression could not help but change. The Tao Palace was full of monsters. There were probably many monsters at the rank 1 true saint level, but Xiong Tao was called the strongest. His talent and strength were naturally outstanding. Jian Wushuang was indeed not interested in ordinary geniuses, not to mention Duan Yu. Even Mountain King, the Evil Master, and the others whom he had met in the White Bone region could not stir up any emotions in his heart. However, the appearance of Xiong Tao made Jian Wushuang a little interested. "Do you want to fight with me?" Jian Wushuang looked at Xiong Tao calmly. "Originally is not much interest, but just saw you a sword defeated Duan Yu. That swordsmanship makes my eyes light up. So I just show up." Xiong Tao said, "In that case, let's do it. I also want to know how strong the strongest first-rank true saint is in Tao Palace." Jian Wushuang said with a smile, "I won't let you down." As Xiong Tao spoke, he slowly lowered his arms, which he had been hugging the whole time. Then, with a flip of his palm, a 3-meter-long golden long rod appeared in his hand. At the same time, a faint murderous aura appeared, also slowly rose from the body of Xiong Tao. "Brother Xiong Tao, it's time to make a move." Previously, they were worried that Xiong Tao might not want to fight Jian Wushuang, but now it seemed that they were overthinking. Of course, this was all thanks to Duan Yu. If Duan Yu had not shown Jian Wushuang some strength, Xiong Tao would not have been interested in Jian Wushuang. Seeing Xiong Tao take out his magic weapon, Jian Wushuang also took out the Blood Mountain Sword. A divine power aura also swept out from his body. "Be careful," Xiong Tao reminded him, but his body suddenly moved. It was fine if he did not move, but when he moved, boom. The fierce aura from Xiong Tao suddenly increased by dozens, hundreds of times. Jian Wushuang felt that it was not a human cultivator, but a living ancient beast that was charging at him. It was the first time Jian Wushuang had seen such a strong, murderous aura. Whoosh! Xiong Tao appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. He held the golden long stick with both hands, and the brutal power surged into the long stick. Boom! Boom! A violent boom sounded, as if the mountain was collapsing and the earth was cracking. The golden stick shadow formed by the golden long stick smashed toward Jian Wushuang's head in a vast and mighty manner. The stick shadow had not arrived yet, but the power coming from the long stick made Jian Wushuang raise his head involuntarily. Not bad. Just from this stick alone, it seems to be much more powerful than the 3 original palace geniuses I met in the White Bone region. Jian Wushuang smiled and suddenly swung his right arm. An equally shocking evil aura suddenly swept across. Roar! A deep, angry roar suddenly came from the heaven and earth. Jian Wushuang also swung his sword, but the instant he did so, the sword light directly turned into a complete and huge ancient exotic beast. This ancient exotic beast was extremely ferocious, and its evil aura soared to the sky. It carried a shocking power as it directly attacked the golden staff shadow. Bang! A loud sound shook the heaven and earth. The divine power formed a series of shock waves that crazily swept in all directions. Whoosh! Whoosh! Jian Wushuang and Xiong Tao were both sent flying at the same time. An absolute art at the peak of rank 4. Xiong Tao stared at Jian Wushuang with a gleam in his eyes. Haha, isn't yours the same? Jian Wushuang laughed heartily. When the two exchanged blows, both sides could see that the other party was using an absolute art at the peak of rank 4, and both were proficient in strength and power. Even their first exchange of divine power was about the same, so the result of this collision was surprisingly equal. Humph! With a cold snort, Xiong Tao stepped forward again. Golden snake stick. Whoosh! A stick shadow, like a long golden snake, suddenly darted toward Jian Wushuang's chest. Jian Wushuang waved his arm, and the blood mountain sword directly chopped at the center of the long golden snake. However, the long golden snake strangely swayed and swept toward Jian Wushuang's head again. Interesting. Jian Wushuang also immediately moved to block it. Clang, 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 clang. A low collision sound in the void one after another sounded. The two of the rules of understanding are extremely high, speed, movement are also extremely good. Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship was very strong, but Xiong Tao's stick skill was not weak either. This exchange reached a white-hot stage in an instant. In the blink of an eye, the two men have confronted each other no less than dozens of times. My golden snake staff is like a snake. My soul is incomparably fast, but this person is actually able to keep up with my speed and block all of my staff techniques. Xiong Tao's gaze turned cold. He was still using the golden snake staff, but at the same time, the strength in his hands began to increase. That's right, from the start, Xiong Tao had been holding back his strength. He had only used the power of the Divine Power King, an ordinary rank 1 true saint. However, for a super genius like him, the power of his divine power had long surpassed that of his peers. Previously, he had only wanted to rely on his staff skill to defeat Jian Wushuang. However, when he realized that he could not do so, he naturally wanted to use his advantage in the power of his divine power. Boom, boom. The same staff shadow was used, but as Xiong Tao used more divine power, the staff shadow became stronger. Bang, 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 bang. They fought again, and again, but the two sides were still evenly matched. I have used nearly 20% of my strength, but I still don't have the slightest advantage. Xiong Tao frowned slightly, but the strength in his hands continued to increase. 30%, 40%. In just a short moment, Xiong Tao had already used 50% of his strength. His 50% strength was already above the divine power of a peak stage, rank 2, true saint, but in the end, he still doesn't have the slightest advantage. While I'm constantly increasing my strength, he's also increasing his own strength. Xiong Tao's eyes carried a trace of shock. After a long while, he finally did not hold back at all. Bang! A terrifying divine might suddenly erupted. Xiong Tao's divine power, which was far more tyrannical than that of his peers, finally completely erupted. Chapter 3083. Special Life Form. The first one is here. Buzz, the world shook. Xiong Tao had turned into a prehistoric beast and appeared in front of Jian Wushuang in a flash. Whoosh! The long staff came crashing down. A golden staff shadow rapidly enlarged in the void, crushing the void in a mighty way, as if the void was about to be completely crushed. The terrifying divine power swept out without restraint. Jian Wushuang immediately saw that the power burst out by Xiong Tao had definitely reached the level of a third-ranked true saint. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang smiled coldly, and then his divine power suddenly increased, and he directly slashed out with his blood mountain sword. Bang! A crisp air explosion sounded, as if the world was about to explode completely. At the place where Jian Wushuang and Xiong Tao were fighting, a terrifying shockwave swept out crazily in all directions, and a huge divine power storm suddenly formed. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two figures also retreated explosively once again. This time, they were still evenly matched. How is this possible? Xiong Tao's face was full of shock. If he was evenly matched with Jian Wushuang in the beginning because he had not shown his true strength, then now he had gone all out and unleashed the power of his divine power to the maximum. The power of his divine power was comparable to that of a rank 3 true saint, but he still could not gain an advantage in front of Jian Wushuang. It seems that I have underestimated you. Xiong Tao's body trembled slightly. He was excited, and his eyes shone with an unprecedented light. Heavenly Sword Marquis, I didn't expect that not only your swordsmanship is very strong, but your divine power is also so powerful. Although there are countless geniuses in the Dao Palace, none of them can compare to you. Thank you for your compliment. You're not bad either, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. He was telling the truth. Xiong Tao was definitely the strongest and most terrifying first-ranked true saint he had ever seen. Mountain King and the other two whom he had met in the White Bone region were far inferior to Xiong Tao. If I'm not wrong, you haven't fully displayed your strength yet. Jian Wushuang looked at Xiong Tao. Smart. Xiong Tao grinned. Since I entered the Dao Palace, I haven't used my full strength for a long, long time. But today, I met you, Heavenly Sword Marquis. You should be glad that you are the first cultivator of the same level to force me to reveal my true form. Xiong Tao's words echoed between heaven and earth. As soon as he finished his words, his body began to change. Originally, Xiong Tao looked like a strong man who was nearly 3 meters tall. However, at this moment, his divine body began to expand at an astonishing speed, from 3 meters tall to 10 meters tall. At the same time, his body began to swell crazily, and his skin turned from dark to golden. The golden skin was like pieces of golden rocks, covering every corner of Xiong Tao's divine body. This is Jian Wushuang frowned and looked at Xiong Tao. It's not a human, but a beast? No, it's not a beast. Jian Wushuang shook his head violently. Its aura and feeling are completely different from that of a beast. This feeling is unique. It's a special life form. A fierce light flashed in Jian Wushuang's eyes. The divine beginning world was vast and boundless. In the divine beginning world, there were all kinds of creatures such as humans, exotic beasts, dire beasts, and so on. At the same time, there were also some races with unique bloodlines, such as the 4 great divine races, who stood at the top of the divine beginning world. The 4 great divine races had very high bloodlines, and their innate advantages were much greater than that of humans and ordinary exotic beasts. However, the 4 divine races were not the ones with the greatest innate advantage in the divine beginning world. The ones with the greatest innate advantage were the unique special life forms in the divine beginning world. These special life forms were born special and different from the rest. There was basically only one type of life form in the entire divine beginning world. Like Jian Wushuang, he was a perfect chaos creature. To put it bluntly, he was also a type of special life form. However, he was the most supreme among the special life forms. Even the will of the heavenly Tao was extremely fearful of him. Although other special life forms could not be compared to perfect chaotic gods, they were much stronger than those with special bloodlines and races. However, such special life forms were too rare. They were rare in the divine beginning world. Although Jian Wushuang had heard of them before, he had never seen them before. But now he had seen them for real. Xiong Tao was undoubtedly a special life form. No wonder his divine power is so powerful. Special life forms have a huge innate advantage. Although he is only a rank 1 true saint, his divine power is no less than an ordinary rank 3 true saint. Jian Wushuang praised. However, it was normal when he thought about it. Although there were not many special life forms in the divine beginning world, the Tao Palace was where all the geniuses of the divine beginning world gathered. It was normal to have 1 or 2 special life forms. Baixiao and the others who were watching the battle in the void were excited when they saw the changes in Xiong Tao's divine body. There was a rumor in the Tao Palace that senior brother Xiong Tao had an extremely unique bloodline. There was even a rumor that he was a unique special life form in the world. No one had seen it before, so everyone doubted the rumor. But now, it seems that the rumor is true. Baixiao exclaimed in surprise. Special life forms, even the lowest level special life forms, have an innate advantage that is much stronger than some powerful bloodline races. Although senior brother Xiong Tao is only a first-level true saint, because of the special life forms, his divine power is at least comparable to a peak second-level true saint, or even a third-level true saint. If we combine this with some secret techniques that are unique to the Tao Palace to increase the power of his divine power, senior brother Xiong Tao's divine power will definitely reach the peak of the 3rd rank in a short period of time, even approaching the level of a 4th-rank true saint. And the staff technique that senior brother Xiong Tao created has already reached the peak of the 4th rank. The red-haired man, the black-robed youth, and the beautiful woman in golden armor widened their eyes. They knew that Xiong Tao was very strong, but they did not know how strong he was because they were not qualified to fight with him. But now they finally understood. Monster, senior brother Xiong Tao is definitely a real monster. The 4 people were growling in their hearts. At this moment, as soon as Xiong Tao revealed his true form, his aura surged again. His eyes were cold as he stared at Jian Wushuang. Next, I will use my strongest strength. In addition, I will also use my strongest staff skill. You can try your best to block it. If you can't block it, just say the word, and I will stop immediately. Chapter 3084. Full power _ stop immediately? No need. Just show me whatever you have. I hope you can give me a surprise. Jian Wushuang looked at Xiong Tao expectantly. Until now, he was really excited and excited. This kind of excitement rarely appeared on cultivators of the same level. This was the first time in his life. As you wish. Xiong Tao spoke softly, but his eyes turned completely cold in the next moment. Golden Mountain Staff. Boom. Xiong Tao struck out with the staff. It was a golden long staff, but at this moment, the golden long staff was wildly enlarged. In the blink of an eye, it formed a towering golden mountain. This golden mountain contained a terrifying power. The moment it was smashed out, the surrounding people, including Baixiao, were all shocked. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly and burst out his divine power. The Blood Mountain Sword turned into a blood-red thunderbolt. Bang! With a loud sound, the Golden Mountain was sent flying. It's not over yet. The second strike. Xiong Tao shouted in a low voice, and the lofty Golden Mountain, which was sent flying, struck fiercely again. In terms of speed and power, it was much stronger than the first strike. Oh! Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Interesting. Bang, 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 bang. The golden long stick turned into a towering golden mountain and smashed at Jian Wushuang again and again. The power of the long stick became stronger and stronger each time. When it reached the seventh stick, the power contained in the towering golden mountain had definitely reached the level of a rank 4 true saint. However, as the long staff struck out again, the power continued to surge. Ha! Awesome! Awesome! Again! Jian Wushuang let out a wanton laugh. The strength in his hand continued to increase as he collided with the golden long staff again and again. The 8th staff, the 9th staff, the 10th staff. In the blink of an eye, Jian Wushuang and Xiong Tao had collided 13 times, and Xiong Tao had also used the 13th staff. The power contained in the golden long staff had long frightened Baixiao and the others. Even the 2 rank 4 true saints behind Duan Yu were shocked. Is this really the power of a rank 1 true saint? A purple-haired elder among the 2 rank 4 true saints could not help exclaiming. Yes, it was indeed unleashed by a rank 1 true saint. However, this power is too strong, too strong. The other rank 4 true saint, it was a thin and weak-looking woman dressed in black. The eyes of this woman also flickered with thick shock. I am a genuine rank 4 true saint, after all. Moreover, I came from the heavenly cloud pavilion, so my techniques aren't weak. However, the staff technique that Xiong Tao is using right now actually makes me feel like I can't resist it. I have the same feeling. The purple-haired elder nodded heavily. Xiong Tao's staff technique is continuously accumulating power over and over again. When he collides head-on with his opponent, he can also continuously increase the power of his staff technique. The first staff technique that he used previously and the 13th staff technique that he's using now are 2 completely different concepts. I can easily block that first staff technique, but when it comes to the 13th staff technique, even if I use all my strength to display my strongest move, I might not be able to match this power. However, if I were to really fight with him, I would definitely not give him the chance to display the 13th staff. Yes, although his staff technique is powerful, if he had observed the characteristics of the staff technique in advance and used brute force to break his staff technique earlier, he would not have been able to display the 13th staff. However, the Heavenly Sword Marquis, who is fighting with him, the Heavenly Sword Marquis should have also noticed the uniqueness of Xiong Tao's staff technique. However, he didn't do that from the beginning to the end. Instead, he allowed Xiong Tao's staff technique to gather strength and increase its power. The most terrifying thing is that even though Xiong Tao's staff technique has already gathered the strength to the 13th staff technique, and even we couldn't block it, he was able to block it head-on, the 2 rank 4 true saints looked at each other in shock. They were shocked by Xiong Tao's staff skills, but they were even more shocked by Jian Wushuang. Even they did not dare to let Xiong Tao continue accumulating strength, but Jian Wushuang dared to block it head-on. How terrifying was this? Look, Xiong Tao has used the 14th staff skill again. The purple-haired elder suddenly exclaimed. In the center of the battlefield, after Jian Wushuang received Xiong Tao's 13th move, Xiong Tao immediately used the 14th move again. Boom! Boom! The heaven and earth began to shake wildly, as if they could not withstand the power contained in the golden long stick. Boom! With a loud sound, the golden long stick fell down instantly. Endless power surged toward Jian Wushuang in an instant. Jian Wushuang's eyes sparkled. With a whoosh, the Blood Mountain sword slashed out in anger. Bang! It was another fierce confrontation, and this time Jian Wushuang was sent flying from the front. After a while, he stopped again, but his aura was still very stable. Haha, awesome again! Jian Wushuang shouted excitedly. Xiong Tao's aura had reached the extreme of violence. His eyes were bloodshot. At the same time, golden veins bulged on his body, and his huge body looked terrifying. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Endless divine power, accompanied by a violent aura, gathered again toward the golden long staff in his hand. 15th. Xiong Tao roared hysterically. Boom! The void between heaven and earth was blasted open, and a large amount of air retreated to both sides. A golden staff shadow fell mercilessly. Everything in the world trembled under this strike. Even the 2 rank 4 true saints of Fatty Zhou had a trace of fear in their eyes when they saw this strike. Seeing this strike, Jian Wushuang's excitement had reached its peak, and he did not hold back any of his powerful divine power. As a perfect chaotic creature, although he was only a rank 1 true saint, his divine power was already comparable to, or even stronger than that of a peak rank 3 true saint. At this moment, the terrifying divine power surged toward the Blood Mountain sword in his hand. Jian Wushuang struck out with his sword. Hua! The sword light slashed furiously, and in an instant, a thick beast roar sounded in heaven and earth. It was the peerless sword manual, Xixiang. It was the most powerful sword skill among the 7 moves of the peerless sword manual that Jian Wushuang had created. In the blink of an eye, the shocking sword shadow came into direct contact with the golden long staff. Bang! The world shook. At the moment of contact, Jian Wushuang felt a strong power passing through his arm, causing his divine body to tremble. Then, his entire body fell down uncontrollably. With this fall, a big hole immediately appeared in the ground.